Reveille, reveille, donks.
Look at us now, tip to tip. This is our life. This is our passion.
I'm Luke Thomas. This is Morning Kombat. Oh, it's a Friday. You ain't got no job. You ain't got shit to do. Well, maybe you have a job and maybe you're just falling down on it. Either way, let us help you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Morning Kombat. My name is Luke Thomas. I am one half of your hosting duo. I join you from the capital of Estados Unidos right here in Washington, D.C., joined by my Canadian brethren, who is... what is the weather like where you're at in the T-dot of Toronto, Canada?
Oh, it's horrible. And this weekend's going to be particularly awful, where I'll speak Celsius for those that live outside of the United States of America and say that it's going to be a high of minus 14. And then I think it's like a high of minus 17 on Sunday. So,
by the way, this is Sportsnet's Aaron Bronsteter. Aaron, thank you so much for being here today. Aaron, what do Canadians do when it's that cold?
We just live our lives in misery. It's just brutally cold, and I've got a dog, so I've got to walk my dog once, maybe twice a day, walk my kids to school, pick them up from school. So there's really no avoiding it because the school's so close that driving wouldn't make sense, but also still like a 10-minute walk. So it's like, it's just that level of discomfort that you just don't want on a daily basis. But
I have tried riding my e-bike as much as I can as a replacement for my car. And I would say like for 95% of the time I'm able to do it. But when it gets down into the 20s and even the teens on the bike, bro, it hurts your face when the wind starts to hit it. You have to have like a full, I don't know how people on motorcycles do it. I guess they have a complete head to toe covering because any exposed skin, it's quite literally painful to get hit with it. So
you're like Jeff Daniels from Dumb and Dumber, just like
yes,
icicles on your face.
That's right. I get 70 miles to the gallon on this hog. Don't think I don't. But anyway, nice to see you, Aaron. Thank you so much for being here. Let's set the table for today's agenda if we can. We do have MMA this weekend. We don't have a gigantic event on Paramount Plus, but we do have one. Plus, we got something going down today or tomorrow, I should say, for PFL in Abu Dhabi or Dubai. What am I saying? Dubai. So let's talk about that. We're going to talk about UFC Fight Night. We'll talk about the weekend's PFL event. And by the way, not for nothing, you can make an argument that PFL has, at least on paper, the best fight in MMA this weekend. That's not necessarily exaggeration. We'll talk about the future of Shavkhat Rakhmonov and then a bunch of news and notes around the world of MMA and boxing. Nick Diaz kind of doing interviews out there. Floyd Mayweather suing Showtime. What does it all mean? We'll unpack everything. So thank you for being here. Thumbs up if you're watching on the video here. You can follow us on social. You can see Aaron's down there on X as well as IG. I'm everywhere as well as Morning Kombat itself. Now, we had mentioned that we had a new design for merch that we were going to debut today. Let's do that. Here is the February design. It is not the Army of Darkness, but it is, in fact, the Army of Donkness. This comes to us from our friend. This is Average Joe Art, right, Long Island?
Correct. The man, the myth.
Yeah, we'll come to Long Island here in just a second. This will be available until February 28th at 11:59 p.m. or until supplies last. And of course, it's not just the shirt. You can get the poster as well. You can do that, of course, at morningkombat.shop. Now, let's also bring in Long Island Luke here. Leave the merch graphic up if you can. This is the third member of our show here, the son of a horned-up Australian. First of all, Long Island, how are you doing? Second of all, why don't you tell folks about some of the evergreen merch that's been added to the store?
All right. First of all, I'm doing great. Second of all, repping the Islanders today for our Canadian brethren who's here. Third of all, new shirts added. We added an MKDC style design that looks pretty cool, especially if you want to rep DC. And we got a graffiti like MK logo that also looks pretty cool. So go check both of those out. They're on morningkombat.shop.
No, very quickly. Hold on. Come back one more time. There is both a PFL Dubai card, and then there is the UFC Fight Night card, which will be at the Apex. How many hours are you going to devote to that and not towards your girlfriend?
So PFL, I'm skipping complete. I mean, I might watch. She actually works Saturdays, so I actually will probably watch PFL. Gaff's doing a full card watch along. Go check him out. PFL.
For PFL?
Yeah, he's doing full card PFL, and then we'll together do full card UFC. So Gaff's got like a fucking 14-hour day or something. But either way, I'll throw some bets in on the PFL, but I don't really plan on watching it too closely.
Did Gaff get dumped?
No, he's just, he's devoted to the channel, man. You gotta get it to grow,
Aaron, how does it work for you? Like for me, if I'm going to ask for time to work, my wife will give it to me, but she's not going to give it to me for a middle of the afternoon, like PFL card. You know what I'm saying?
So I've got two things going on Saturday. So first off, my kid has his belt test on. My son has his belt test right at like around 1 o'clock. So that's kind of right when I think the PFL main card is going to be heating up. So if I'm not going to get to see that, I might, after his belt test, we'll probably take him out and get like some ice cream or something, donuts probably because of the weather, some sort of treat. And then I'll come back and maybe I'll be able to watch the PFL. But then the other barrier of entry here is that I have no clue where to watch the PFL in Canada. I just went to their website today to find out where to watch it, and it says you can bet on it here. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not looking to bet on it. I'd like to be able to actually watch the event. And the last time the PFL had an event, I couldn't figure out where to watch it in Canada either. So if you are a fan of the PFL in Canada, it would be great if they could inform us as to where we can actually watch this event, because I have the ability to send a message to like their PR people because I know them. But if you're just a Canadian that wants to watch the fights, you're just going to have no clue how to do it, which is kind of unfortunate.
So, okay, so let's back up a step here. You couldn't use the app?
No, I don't think you can even download the PFL app in Canada. If you can, then maybe that's where it was. But I was looking everywhere. I wasn't on the platform that was announced as the rights holder or on YouTube. So I don't know. And then I looked at the schedule for, I guess they used to be on DAZN, and they're not even in the listings. You look at PFL and all you get is NFL results. So it's just confusing.
Yeah, they don't do it.
LT, for us Americans, is it on ESPN Plus or is it on that ESPN Unlimited shit?
See, this herein lies the problem.
Yeah.
Where, like, first off, if you want to watch PFL, like, I understand, like, I think it's, you should be able to, but to be able to not know where it is could be the, like, deal breaker between should I watch this or should I not watch this, right? Like, if you're not going to be able to figure out right away where you're going to be able to find it.
So my understanding is if you look at the poster, it has the ESPN logo on it. And let's see, I'm looking here. I think it's going to be on what's it called? It's not the Plus service.
It's unlimited, right?
Yeah, the unlimited one.
Yeah, which I don't pay for. So I take back what I said earlier. I will be watching zero of this PFL card.
Yeah, both the main card and the prelims are on ESPN Unlimited in the US.
Yeah, so there you go. You have to watch there. I thought it was going to be ESPN 2, but I think that's going to be their Pittsburgh card. That's going to be there. All right. Well, we have a lot to get to. One last reminder. We still keep the email open. We still do want to have fan subs and dead wrong. You can send that at morningkombat@gmail.com, morningkombat@gmail.com, or just to reach the show. It's a place you can go. Just keep that up. If you have things you want to send for those segments, we'll still do them, but you got to fill them up, and then we'll do them like a little more periodically. Anything else, Aaron, before we get started?
No, let's roll.
All right, let's roll. Topic number one here. We'll start with the UFC event this weekend. Now, again, we had back-to-back weeks where they had the PLEs or numbered events, whatever you want to call them. We're back to the Apex this time. However, we're going to talk about the Apex and some of the changes that we've seen already with Zuffa Boxing, as well as the broader card that we have, which is a Mario Bautista versus Vinicius Oliveira main event. Before we talk about this main event, Aaron, I want to talk about the changes to the Apex. Now, there are more that are coming, and it's expected that it's going to be a potentially 1,000-seat venue, which is, I think, not quite the same size as the Pearl at the Palms, but something commensurate, relatively speaking, with that. Let's roll this video that we have here. You can see it. This is from John Morgan showing some of the seating. We had seen this a little bit last year when WWE briefly took over the Apex for one of their events. Obviously, if it doesn't fill up, I don't know how much it's necessarily adding to the atmosphere. But what I will say is, I think creating a box office, creating an in-fan experience, like a home destination for the standard kind of MMA event. Obviously, T-Mobile kind of serves for that for the more marquee events. But, the week-to-week events is obviously a plus. I love that they've added the seating. You've been to the Apex. What do you make of some of the changes that they're trying to institute?
Well, I'll say this. The venue has not always translated on TV, but to watch live fights there, and people are going to fire shots at me for saying this, but unless you've actually seen fights at the Apex, don't bother. It's one of the most intimate, best live venues for fights when you're actually in the building. It's an amazing experience to watch fights at the Apex. I was at the first Zuffa boxing card. That was a great experience. It felt like a great club show, like a really kind of high production club show. And for Fight to the Apex for Contender Series, it's just such an amazing experience. Like, I know you've called XFC fights, I call fights for Unified. Getting to sit cage side, like, there's really nothing like it. But there's not a bad seat in the Apex. You can see everything that's happening. There's not really a lot of blind spots. It's honestly an ideal atmosphere to watch fights. Now that they're making tickets available to the public, I urge you that if you're in Vegas ever, whatever, for a weekend, or you're there for a conference or whatever, go to the Apex and watch fights, because it's honestly a incredible experience. Even though the level of fight won't be as high as it would be on a numbered event, the atmosphere and the experience is really quite unparalleled, I would say.
I always say this. I've been to the Apex, but not to the inside of it where for a live fight, but I've been to the building. What I would say is, I'm not putting this on par with regional MMA, but I always tell people it's important to go to regional MMA, in part because you want to just promote what your local MMA scene is, and also part you might see some people who eventually end up in UFC. Also, it's more affordable than typical stuff. But what I mean to say is, also, you can just get great seats. These are always going to be in smaller venues, relatively speaking. It's going to be cheaper than the high-end UFC show, generally speaking. I'm sure there's going to be some examples that's not necessarily true, but as a general rule, it's just a great opportunity to see MMA up close, which, as you indicated, is kind of the best way to do it. Now, with that in mind, let's actually talk about this main event, a bantamweight main event, Aaron, between Mario Bautista and Loke Dog Vinicius Oliveira. Mario Bautista is trying to get back to his winning ways after a tough fight against Usman Nurmagomedov, where Vinicius Oliveira, who is surging, if nothing else, this would probably represent a move into the top 10 if he were to win. But is there something else that might be on the line, some other way to look at this bout as he steps into his first main event role?
Yeah, there's a lot for Vinicius Oliveira to take away from this, and Bautista as well, because I think this is his first main event in the UFC. But when you look at this being a 5-round fight, we haven't seen either have 5-round experience, so that's going to be massive for both of them. And really, for Oliveira, his style, I feel, is a little bit less conducive to 5 rounds than Bautista is. Bautista is like an elite generalist. He's great everywhere. He's not the best at anything, but he's really, really high level at just about everything in MMA. And I think that also includes cardio and his durability. So I think for Oliveira, if he can go 5 rounds and win a decision over a guy that I think is like really the ultimate gatekeeper at bantamweight, because he's just so good everywhere and his game is so tight across the board, I think that would be a massive feather in the cap of Vinicius Oliveira, and takes him from one of those guys that are like, oh yeah, he could be a top 10 bantamweight, to a guy that could compete for the championship. Because I think beating Bautista is kind of the threshold for getting into that top 5 of the bantamweight division.
By the way, Long Island Rook reminds us this is the first UFC main event for both. In terms of what you think the matchmakers are saying, why did they pair these two up? Why would you pair, if you're the matchmaker, right? We don't know, but let's guess. Try to make an educated guess about this. What are they trying to do by putting these two together? What message are they sending in either direction?
Total litmus test. If Oliveira is able to beat Bautista, he belongs. He belongs at the top end of the bantamweight division. And for Bautista, this is now, I think, going to be his role. But, you know, when you see a situation like this where you have Bautista facing guys that are on the lower end of the top 15, guys that are emerging, the Peyton Talbots of the world, the Oliveiras of the world, once he starts beating enough of those guys, that's when he gets back into title contention. So we've seen this in other divisions as well, where fighters get put in these situations where, like Brendan Allen, I think, is a good example at middleweight. He's kind of the gatekeeper, but then he starts to rail off enough wins that he starts to make himself viable to compete for the championship, even though he has been stopped by that kind of top echelon of the division. I think that's where Bautista's at, having just lost to Umar. And I thought put up a pretty good fight against Umar, all things considered. So I think that this is really just a litmus test for Oliveira, and also for Bautista to show that, hey, he is still a guy that should be considered a top 5 bantamweight.
Yeah, I would say I agree with this. I also think that part of what they're doing, and as you indicated, an elite generalist, I think, is a good way to describe Bautista. Also, a guy like Oliveira is so aggressive, both with his forward pressure as well as just some of the stuff that he throws, that, you know, that's going to be the kind of thing that can obviously stumble a Kyler Phillips, who is a good fighter, but not necessarily a great one. And that kind of pressure ultimately can make him make mistakes. to the point where he also can't take advantage of some of the mistakes that Oliveira is himself engaging in by sometimes over pursuit, either with his feet or with his hands. A guy like Bautista, however, is going to be in a better position to make some effective use of that. So to me, it's also the matchmakers kind of asking, we can tell you're talented, we can tell you're tough, we can tell you're going to walk down people, and that's very, very good for us. At the same time, can you tighten it up a little bit when you need to against a guy who might be able to more readily punish the mistakes that you're going to make? That being said, Aaron, Oliveira thinks that Mario is boring and that he intends to KO him in round 1. We got some audio of this.
I think the UFC made a good choice, a good matchup, because he's a boring fighter, and I think UFC wanted to put him out. And he put me to have the chance to put him out.
Do you feel like you're going to knock him out?
For sure, in first round. I see myself to the end of the year fighting for the belt for sure. But before that, I'm going to fight on top 5. After this fight, I'm going to put on a great performance to the audience. And then to the middle of the year, I'm going to fight against a top 5 in the rank. It doesn't matter who. Maybe I got some naming in my mind, like 2 names. I would like to fight so much in the White House. Maybe if it is possible, there is only 2 guys in the ranking in top 5 that he was able to fight there. But it doesn't matter who. But to the middle of the year, I'm going to fight again. And this year, I'm going to fight for the belt against anyone. Doesn't matter.
The reality is, Aaron, and I'm sure you probably know this too and agree, beating Bautista is difficult for any number of reasons. He's very, very good. But one of the true things is, even if you do get a chance to beat him, he's very difficult to look good against. For Oliveira, if he were able to get a win, it would prove a lot. More to that point, if you're able to do, or I should say, achieve a win in a stylish kind of way, you would imagine the matchmakers would be super high on him for this, yes?
Yeah, there's a lot to gain for Oliveira in this spot, because he mentions that Bautista is a boring fighter. He has been that way in the past, like the Aldo fight, I think, was an example. But at the same time, Bautista fought that way because that was his best path to victory. And he's a smart fighter. He's always going to choose the path of least resistance. And unfortunately, he came up against an even better generalist in Umar in his last fight. And that's why he's coming off that loss. But I think that if Oliveira tries too hard to get the finish against Bautista and is unsuccessful, I think Bautista is going to roll downhill on him as the fight goes on. And that's my worry for Oliveira. Not to mention that Oliveira said he cut, I think, something like 55 pounds during this camp.
Yeah,
to make
some
weight,
absurd amount of weight.
Yeah.
I did see that as well. And also
and
for a guy
they're
who's
getting on the scale in about 40 minutes, so I guess we'll keep track of that as well.
Yeah, Long Island Luke will keep us posted on the weight miss. That being said, for Bautista, he's in an interesting spot, right, Aaron? Because on the one hand, we both know he's very good. He didn't do himself a lot of fan favors in the Aldo fight. Obviously, he emerged victorious, and that is important, and has largely succeeded again, coming up a little bit short against Umar. But so what? Umar is maybe the best guy in this division, at least has a case for it. Nevertheless, here's what he said he wanted, and I want you to react. Tell me what he has to do to get this opportunity.
You know, if everything goes good, I want to get back into the top 5. One I've always wanted for a while is that Sandhagen rematch. You know, I lost my debut, and I, chased him all the way down to the very top. So I think that'd make a great story.
Think they'll do it?
A Sandhagen rematch would make sense. I think that was his UFC debut. He might have just said that. But yeah, and he got submitted in that fight. But I think that would be a great fight. I think that stylistically, that fight would make a lot of sense as well. And again, I don't know if you would call Sandhagen a generalist as well. Like, Sandhagen's very good everywhere, but I think he's more of a dynamic striker. Whereas I just think that Bautista, his improvements that he's made since that fight are palpable. Like, he's looked really sharp, and I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to be in this bantamweight mix for a while, especially if he's able to beat Oliveira. And I do think that he has a little bit less to gain than Oliveira does in this spot, but I still think it's important for him to establish himself as one of these top bantamweight guys.
If he were to get a stoppage over Oliveira, would that turn the fans in his favor?
I think it depends how. I think if he wears Oliveira down and gets a 4th or 5th round finish just because Oliveira runs out of gas, I still think that'll go somewhat far with the fans. But I also think that they're looking for a level of dynamism that Bautista doesn't really bring. like Oliveira does. And those are the kind of fighters that become fan favorites. And Oliveira's got this look to him. He's looked great since debuting in the UFC. I've been very high on him personally. I'm a little bit worried that this fight's going to be a bridge too far for him because of the circumstances, it being 5 rounds, it being a main event against a guy that it's just so hard to look good against. But at the same time, I think that if either of them gets a finish, it's certainly going to help, amplify them in terms of the bantamweight standings, in terms of the minds of the fans.
One of the things that's been brought up to me by fans is if you notice that Vinicius Oliveira's takedown percentage in terms of takedown defense is sitting at a pretty good 80%, even in cases where he has been taken down. People can barely hold him down for any amount of time. This is a common feature more recently. Takedown accuracy for Mario Bautista, 32%. To what extent do you think that will do? Does he have what it takes to break through?
I don't know if that's going to be the game plan for Bautista. I think Bautista is probably going to try to strike with Oliveira. And if he does go for takedowns, it'll probably be just to mix it up. I don't think that he's going to have a grapple-heavy approach like he did against Aldo. I think with Aldo, a lot of it, the grappling that Bautista did was to slow him down, stifle him, and slow him. He might implement that sort of a game plan if he wants to slow Oliveira down. But Oliveira isn't quite like as fast twitch and dynamic as Aldo is. He's more of a builder. So I think that that's why my concern with Oliveira trying to get an early finish is that he doesn't take into consideration this being a 5-round fight, having the gas tank to go all 5 rounds, especially with the amount of weight that he's cut in the last couple of weeks. So that's why I think a lot of the signs for me point to Bautista as being the rightful favorite in this fight, and what makes this a tough fight for Oliveira, who, again, I've been really high on, and I would love to see him break through. I think that would be great for the division. I'm just not seeing it, at least on paper.
Long Island, do you have the odds for this one?
Yeah, so last I looked, which I have it up right here, it's minus 142. Oh, so they've come down. Minus 142 for Bautista, plus 120 for Oliveira. Earlier in the week, Bautista was like minus 180. So
why do you think they've narrowed?
Because I think there's value on Loke Dog as a dog, no pun intended. I kind of liked him, and I was considering taking it. 5 rounds is like the biggest worry for me here. Also, like Aaron said, Bautista's kind of good everywhere. He's not really great anywhere, but he's good everywhere, and he's a tough guy to like look good against, a tough guy to beat. So I didn't personally take it, but I could see why people are betting Loke Dog.
He's just tough to have sustained offense. He can move. He's got takedown defense. He can scramble. He can touch and go. And again, is he going to overwhelm you with any of it? Probably not. At least not early in this fight anyway. But he's just hard to. You can land on him, right? Or you can do what Umar did, which was like literally tightly control him. But beyond that, it's just hard to have sustained offense on this guy. And I'm looking at the odds now. Yeah, money line, Mario Bautista minus 142, Vinicius plus 120 on our friends over the DraftKings Sportsbook. So something to keep in mind. Let's talk about this co-main event if we can, Aaron. Here's a fun one. Amir Albazi's taking on Kyoji Horiguchi, but Amir Albazi has been gone for quite some time. So the question I have for you is this. After being gone for longer than this, but it's certainly all of 2025, had a series of injuries and some health complications, is now like the worst time for him to be fighting Kyoji Horiguchi, right? Because he's not just fighting a tough guy in Horiguchi who might be up or down. This is a Horiguchi who seems to be rejuvenated as he's returned to the UFC.
Yeah, it's also just kind of an awful stylistic matchup for Albazi, who's typically low output, relies on his grappling to make things happen, and looks to control his opponents. I think that, and you look at the fight that Albazi had, like there have been fights where he's been outlanded by a good margin and still ends up getting a decision because of optics. But I think if you're going to be taking a grapple-heavy approach against Horiguchi, I don't think that's a good move because he's so creative in terms of his submissions and with his scrambles. And then I think in the striking, I think Horiguchi's got a good advantage there too because of just the lack of output that Albazi's had. Now, this is a 3-round fight, so that could benefit Albazi, especially if it takes Horiguchi a little bit to get going. Or even if it takes Albazi a little bit to get going, he can also bounce back in the later rounds if it gets there. But to me, again, all signs kind of point to Horiguchi here. The odds are very long, but it's just, again, it's one of these styles makes fight situations, and I don't see Albazi with a great path to victory here.
I like Albazi. I thought he had some, and I'm not saying he still doesn't have some potential. I do think he's got some potential, but losing a year cannot be easy, and you're coming back against a Horiguchi who's 35, but so fleet of foot, so able to move. Very good takedown defense, very good scrambling. And I know what folks might say, Aaron. They might say, well, Patchy Mix was able to control him for long periods of a 5-round bout, which is true. But that was a Patchy Mix that had, that was the middle of his, quite literally the middle of his Bellator Grand Prix push, which was the best I'd ever seen him. And also, Patchy Mix is, as you can see, going to 45. Like, he's a gigantic bantamweight. I'm not saying Albazi is small, Aaron, but he doesn't have the same kinds of. He's got some back-taking skills and he's got some grappling skills in that department, but not like Patchy, at least that version of Patchy, and certainly not with the same body type, right?
Yeah, Patchy is really a kind of an anomaly when it comes to the bantamweight division. He's just so tall and long. In fact, the funny thing is, somebody who's similar to Patchy is the guy that Horiguchi just beat in Ulanbekov in terms of build and in terms of similar kind of abilities. And that's why I think Coyote, has actually gotten better over the last couple of years. And that's kind of a scary thing at 35 for him to really be possibly in his prime years, because at bantamweight usually you're a little late at 35. But I think that, again, stylistically, I just don't see a great path for Albazi here, because I think if he prioritizes the grappling, that's when Horiguchi can take advantage of scrambles. I thought that against Ulanbekov in particular, he looked good in that department. And then with the striking, I think that Horiguchi is just a better striker all around. A more powerful striker, a more dynamic striker. So just in terms of diversity of attack, I think that Horiguchi just has Albazi beaten almost every department.
They must be eyeing Horiguchi either for a big fight in Japan, maybe a title shot. He's got to be thinking about that as well. And in fact, he has. We know he called out Pantoja after his last win. Surely he'll do the same if he gets one here. He doubled down on it during fight week.
Yeah, he can do it. Yeah. And I want to challenge to him, or I get the bet fast, then he challenged me, That's a good story. Yeah. I want to do that,
Yeah, it's kind of a rare thing to see two teammates wanting to fight each other. I guess, where does that come from? And is it just kind of like a friendly competition type of thing?
チームメイト同士が対戦するっていうのはですね、非常に珍しいケースだと思うんですけれども、フレンドリーにチームメイト同士が戦うというか、そういったカジュアルな感じなんでしょうか。
No, that's not like just friendly, Which one is the strongest, Which one is the best in the world in flyweight, So in the training, it's like a little bit fake, That's why I want to show everybody who's the best.
What is Horiguchi's path to a title shot?
By the way, he says, by the way, that it shows me that he's hanging out with a lot of Brazilian guys, because a lot of the Brazilian guys, like at the end of this, Edson Barbosa particularly stands out to me. But I don't understand why he would want to fight Pantoja now. Like, I think that you wait for Pantoja to get the belt back. I think that might be what he's kind of alluding to, is like, if Pantoja's the champion again, I really want to challenge him and test myself. The thing that kind of disappointed me was Alex Bahunin reported this week that Horiguchi was offered the fight with Moreno in Mexico City and said he wanted to fight Albazi first and then turn it around against Moreno. And then they just ended up booking Moreno against Lonnie Kavanagh. But Horiguchi versus Moreno, that would have been an amazing fight. Like, that was what I was hoping would happen when Almabayev pulled out. I was hoping they would pull Horiguchi from this fight and have him fight Moreno. But I guess Horiguchi, it's fight week for him already. Do you want to pull out, start another camp, and then fight Moreno in a month and a half? I'm a little bit disappointed that we're not going to see that. But I think that it is kind of interesting that he's still talking about Pantoja when Pantoja's recovering and isn't the champion right now.
He seems an eager beaver for that particular matchup. I'm guessing things have happened in training where he feels like he's confident about his edge, or whatever this might mean. I don't know. Very quickly on that, were you surprised? I'm not. I want to be clear. I'm not. Were you surprised Charles Johnson didn't get the call up instead of Lonnie Kavanagh versus Brandon Moreno at the Mexico main event later this month?
Well, so apparently he did get the call, and doctors wouldn't clear him,
right?
If I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So, but then he also was booked for a fight like 2 weeks later or something, like March 14th.
Mid-March, the 14th of March, I believe.
And the Moreno fight's February 28th. So I think I said a month and a half. It's actually in like 3 weeks. But I keep getting confused with March 28th, which I think is Seattle. But I think that it's not that much of a surprise. I think Lonnie Kavanagh is just as surprising as Charles Johnson not getting it, because I know Charles Johnson just beat Lonnie Kavanagh, but at the same time, Charles Johnson like just got knocked out in like 2 weeks ago. So I understand them not putting him against Moreno that quickly. At the same time, Lonnie Kavanagh's coming off a loss, and while he is, I think, a big prospect, I don't really understand why him coming off a loss against Moreno, and there's a lot of other flyweights out there right now, was the one that makes sense. Maybe they just went down the list and that's what they came up with. But I was a bit surprised that he ended up getting the call for that one.
Yeah, same. I mean, I'm sure that they did ask around. My understanding is they did ask Horiguchi, as you indicated, and it just wasn't possible, or it couldn't do it. And Charles Johnson was just medically ineligible, and so from there, you're kind of playing with a different set of cards. Long Island Luke, the odds here: Horiguchi -135, Albazi +275. Any realistic path or any good betting around Albazi?
Yeah, just real quick, you said the wrong odds for Horiguchi. It's -345. I think
What
you
did
said
I say?
135 or
Oh,
something.
sorry,
Yeah.
-345. I apologize.
I kind of like an Albazi spread bet. You could get it with +3.5 right now at -110. Like there's a world, Horiguchi wins 29-28 unanimous. You cover that spread, or maybe,
But you don't like him straight up.
No, I don't like him straight up. Every reason Aaron said, I feel like Horiguchi does have the path everywhere. I took the over 2.5 in a parlay. I think regardless, this goes the distance. But my best bet for Albazi would be a spread bet.
In the end, it's a pretty simple equation, Aaron. Like, I just think if you're Albazi, it's got to be the takedown or the grappling, which he might get some of. I wouldn't deny him that it's possible, but you got to get enough of it over the course of 15 minutes to have that be the only dominant offense that was available. And I just think possible, sure. It seems unlikely.
Winning with control these days has not been a great path to victory, given that the criteria has been modified to really pin down exactly what judges are looking for. And I think the judges, have done a really good job in the last, since that modification has been made to the criteria. I think the judges have come under a lot less fire than the referees in recent months. So I think that they've done a lot of good by adding that clarification to the scoring criteria.
Do you where are you on the argument that they're getting rid of grappling in MMA?
I don't think they're getting rid of grappling. I just think that they're scoring it better. I think that they're understanding what effective grappling is and what effective grappling is not. So I don't think there's much of a case of them saying they're getting rid of it. I just think that they're making it a less viable path to victory for people to stall their way to wins. And I think that's a good thing for MMA.
Moving down this card, Aaron, I would not call Jailton Almeida versus Rizvan Kuniev a crossroads fight. I don't think that's right. However, on the other hand, they are both coming off of losses. And so someone's trying to get right here. What does a win or a loss mean in either direction? Do they really believe in Kuniev? Are they trying to rehabilitate Almeida into some kind of title contender? What's really on the line here?
On the line is a fight with another top 15 heavyweight, regardless of who wins or loses.
That's it? That's the whole show?
That's what's on the line, right? I mean, Almeida lost to Volkov. I mean, he can work his way back up towards the top. But, Kuniev has a ranking on the line for himself. But what's a ranking going to do? It's going to, score him a fight with Waldo Cortez Acosta? And if Jailton Almeida wins, what's it going to do? Score him a fight against Waldo Cortez Acosta? I mean, it's kind of where we're at right now. There are just not a whole lot of heavyweights to choose from. So if you win, you're just going to end up fighting another tough heavyweight. And right now, a tough heavyweight isn't that tough of a heavyweight if you look at how this division looks compared to how it's looked historically. So I don't know. I think that for Almeida, he needs to take this opportunity to not do what he did against Volkov. What we just talked about prior to this conversation about grappling and strictly using grappling as a way of controlling Kuniev. He's going to have to look for submissions and be more aggressive like he was when he first started at heavyweight. I think that that's why he was such an exciting heavyweight for a time. And I think that he is, for whatever reason, become a little bit more risk averse. Maybe it's because you are fighting at heavyweight. These guys are heavy hitters, but and he doesn't want to give up positions. But I think that his best case scenario is to find a submission early on Kuniev and show that you're still able to wrestle against anybody in the division. He took down Blades numerous times, but was unable to find a finish. He took down Derek Lewis and stayed on top of him for 5 rounds of just total, like a totally boring heavyweight fight with Derek Lewis, which we haven't seen that many of over the years. There's the Francis fight and maybe that one. So I just think that Almeida needs to seize this opportunity to make himself a viable challenger again. And I think that's really what's at stake for him, is if he can find a finish. That fight with Volkov was so close, he can still hang around at the top of this division. And for Kuniev, a win over, I thought that he potentially beat Curtis Blades in that last fight. I thought that was a really close fight. So Blades has a win over Volkov. If Kuniev gets a win, I think that he starts to find his way into the conversation of the heavyweight challengers down the line.
Blades took down Kuniev twice and defeated him. Blades got taken down 9 times by Jailton Almeida and still defeated him.
In like one round, he got taken down, I think, 9 times by Jailton Almeida.
What can we infer from these data points?
Not a whole lot, really. I think that, people always expect Curtis Blades is going to come out and wrestle, but he's never been a volume wrestler. I mean, I guess at some points he was.
He has in desperation at times.
Yeah.
Like the Volkov fight, yeah.
Yeah, but he's worked a lot more on his striking. I think he's used his striking a lot more in recent fights. Whereas Almeida is like strictly takedown dependent. Like he doesn't want to stand with Kuniev or anybody in the heavyweight division. He wants to take them down as quickly as possible and make their life miserable. But he's also making the fans' lives miserable if he's not getting finishes and just using control. So I think he needs to start working on prioritizing the submission like he did early on in his heavyweight tenure.
All right, give me another fight on this card that is worth paying attention to. What has caught your eye, and tell me why?
Whenever you have these fights at the Apex with a small cage, I'm always intrigued by the smaller weight classes because I think it makes for better fights. So I love the Jian Matsumoto against Farad Basharat fight. I think that's a solid fight that's going to be really exciting. And really early on in the night, you've got Jakub Wiklash, who's coming off of a win over Patchy Mix and is now the second fight on the card against Muin Gafarov for whatever reason. I think that's a great fight. And Javid Basharat got a new opponent in Gianni Vasquez, who I've heard is a great prospect. So I'm excited for those 3 fights in particular, just because I think that bantamweight fights at the Apex give me WEC vibes. So I always love watching those kind of fights.
I would also say, I mean, you took the kind of words out of my mouth. Both Basharat brothers are competing. That's always going to be worth a moment to watch. The other thing I would say is the Nikolai Veretennikov and Nico Price fight. Seems like the donk factor might be high in that one. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely 2 of the biggest donks in the UFC right now. Absolutely, in terms of both how they fight and how they act. So yeah, the donk quotient is high in that one.
Long Island, is the bloom off the rose for Wang Tong against Eduardo Mora?
What was that analogy? Is the bloom off the rose?
Yeah, like are people over her because she lost?
Oh no, because she's bounced back with what, 3 straight after that.
2 straight, but I think it was all decisions too.
Yeah, I was gonna say the hype has died down ever since she knocked out Victoria Leonardo, whatever. But I think we bought into that too much, thinking she's some big power puncher. I still think she's still a prospect. I think she's in her 30s, but prospect loosely. Title contender, we'll say, at flyweight if she can just bounce into the rankings. Eduardo Mora, I don't think is ranked though, right? Or is she?
No, she's not ranked.
Yeah, so I mean, whatever. It's a whatever fight. I want to talk about this Dustin Jacoby Julius Walker fight.
All right.
I was saying last week, why the hell is Dustin Jacoby in Australia? He's got a fight next week. He actually explained it earlier. Let's watch this clip.
Yeah, so, I was in Sydney, Australia. I was traveling on my way en route to fight Jimmy Crute, UFC 325. Got the call shortly before boarding a plane that Crute had got injured. I had a teammate on the card, Cody Brundage, that I was still going to go out and corner, and I was still hoping to have an opponent for the card. Unfortunately, they couldn't find anybody a couple days into being there. So a couple weeks ago, they're like, well, how about Julius Walker, February 7th. I'm like, that's perfect for me. Julius and I had trained together for a little bit. He came out to Factory X, and we had the same management team. So I've been a big fan of his. I've been in communication with him since training with him. And I actually reached out to him on Instagram. I was like, hey, man, I saw your opponent fell off. Jason just reached out to me about a matchup with you. I'm ready to go. I just don't want to be disrespectful, and he come back and said, hey, man, we're both professional. We're both competitors. It'd be an honor to share the octagon with you. I'm like, all right, cool, man. We'll see where this goes. So right then and there, I was like, without hesitation, I accepted.
So he explained why he was in Australia, but at the same time, I still think, like, why a week before your fight, why are you traveling across the country, jet lagged and all? Acclimating to the time over there. They were there for days, it wasn't just like a quick trip here. I don't like him, man. I like Julius Walker as a dog here. He's plus 150 right now on DraftKings. Also like this one to go long. They both said they trained together before. I think there could be some familiarity. Maybe we just, stretch this one out. Close decision. Julius Walker.
It's a 15-hour or 14-hour flight from LA to Sydney.
Yeah, dude. I mean, at 37 years old, which is how old Jacoby is, like the jet lag cannot be easy to bounce back from. With it's like what, I guess, a 12 or 14-hour time difference between there and Vegas, something along those lines. Might even be more.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know, man. That's a tall order. That being said, like Luke just said, you have two guys that have a lot of familiarity with each other. I think that this could end up being kind of a technical kickboxing fight, which would, I think, play a little bit more into the hands of Dustin Jacoby. So I'm curious to see how it goes. I think that Walker's got a lot of athleticism, a very creative fighter, but Dustin Jacoby is just such a tough puzzle to solve for a lot of these guys that don't have a lot of experience in terms of fight experience in this division. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he fights against the guy that's just as technically sound as Jacoby. But the jet lag, I think, certainly should be taken into consideration. And I think that if this fight was booked with more lead time, Jacoby would probably be more of a minus 250 favorite. But because it's kind of a short notice assignment for him with the jet lag, I think money's starting to come in the other way.
These guys love risk. I mean, that's why they do what they do. I just don't know if it's inadvisable. I guess we'll find out tomorrow night. That takes us now to topic 2, which is the other event. Well, there's actually several events this weekend. In fact, I think one has an event either today or tomorrow. So there's actually a few events happening. But the other event of note, perhaps we'll put it that way, is of course going to be PFL. PFL returns with their Dubai card. This is going to be headlined by Usman Nurmagomedov taking on Alfie Davis. It should be noted, though, this is part of kind of like a newfangled PFL. Namely, it's a 5-fight main card. It starts at noon, the main card. And it should be noted, look at the card here. You obviously have Nurmagomedov defending his PFL lightweight title, but you have Kuramagomedov against Musayev. We'll talk about this. That's going to be for the vacant welterweight title. So they're trying to build in and build out, I should say, the standard kind of fight promotion architecture. And then they've got some really interesting fights all the way down. The Lazy King taking on Kinley St. Louis, obviously Jesus Pinedo, and all the way down the line. We'll talk about those fights here in just a minute. Let's open up the conversation, though, with something a little bit different. This is basically the first standout event that they have this year, first event I think that they have this year, that folks are paying attention to. They've got arguably their biggest name on it with Usman Nurmagomedov. To what extent do you think, Aaron, does this event need to be a home run or proof of concept? Like, what would you say defines whether or not they'll look back on this event and say, this was a good event for us?
Yeah, I'm not sure what constitutes as a home run for the PFL at this stage. And I think that it's going to be a success regardless, because I think they're getting probably a nice site fee from Dubai to hold this event there. That being said, when you watch a PFL event in Dubai versus a PFL event in France, it feels like two completely different events. Like the vibe is so much crazier when they do events in like Ireland and France, and these markets they've really done a good job of galvanizing and servicing, where the UFC haven't quite as much, or markets that are really hungry for MMA. And I don't think Dubai is one of those markets. I think Dubai is just a market where they're like, we'll give you some money to do an event here, and Bob's your uncle. I think that's kind of what they're doing right here. So I'm not exactly sure what would constitute this event being a home run. Right now, I think the PFL, this is the first event of their post Don Davis, Peter Murphy, was it? No, Peter Murphy's the guy from Bauhaus. Yeah. Is it Peter Murphy? Peter Murray. Yeah. Peter Murphy's the lead singer of Bauhaus. Shout out to all the goths out there. But I think that in this situation, that they're in a bit of an identity crisis, because they're getting rid of the tournament format, at least for their American or main brand. And they're basically becoming Bellator light, which I just don't understand what the end game is for them here when they're doing that, because that's what this looks like to me. Is like, this looks kind of like a Bellator card, and it's got a lot of great name value. And you remember how much talent the PFL actually has in their roster when you look at a card like this, because I think Denise Kielholz was also supposed to fight Ditchva on this card, and she's in the undercard. But you've got a guy like Taylor Lapalus, who is big in France and is somebody that, a former UFC fighter who I think is extremely talented. Carl Williams, a former UFC fighter. Rob Wilkinson, who's a tournament winner, if I'm not mistaken, of theirs. So they've got like a lot of good talent up and down this card. But really, it's starting to feel to me like, if a tree falls in a forest and no one's around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. I listened to the Severe MMA podcast with Sean Sheehan, and Sean said that last year he felt that PFL actually had the more exciting fights between them and the UFC. It's just how many people were watching them, and you have to give them credit for good matchmaking and for having a solid roster. But I just feel like not enough people are paying attention to the PFL or have continued to pay attention to the PFL. And I also mentioned off the top, I don't even know where to watch this event. And, in the US, it's like pretty heavily paywalled on ESPN Unlimited as well. So they're really making it difficult for you to follow the PFL, which I think is the opposite of what they should be doing.
Yeah, I agree. That is, they've cleaned up the format. They've cleaned up the kind of concept, and they've streamlined it and narrowed it in the right way. And I think that's definitely a big plus. But they've still got these lingering issues, which is, where is PFL Europe? How do I watch it? Where is this PFL Dubai card? I mean, obviously it's in Dubai, but I'm saying, how do we watch it? Is this a consistent way to watch it? Is it just the way to watch it this time? Ironing out some of these things, streamlining it in that particular sense, I think is still a challenge. From my vantage point, very quickly on this, like what would constitute success? I think you can't expect this event that's not even being held in the U.S. to be some kind of giant impact maker in the US. It's just not going to be that way. However, if they can get exciting fights, and if they can get whoever ends up being champion on Saturday to have a kind of like an elevated performance, something to build off of, build momentum, begin to build a reputation for like, wow, this is a much more improved product. I think that's probably best case scenario, to be perfectly honest with you. So let's actually talk about the main event. So Usman Nurmagomedov, last I checked, Long Island Luke, I don't know if you have the updated odds, but like I looked yesterday and he was something like a minus 1,800 favorite, like a gigantic favorite over Alfie Davis in the main event.
He's even bigger now, Luke. He's minus 1,850, Alfie Davis plus 900.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron, it's a tall order for Alfie Davis. What realistically can he do to win? And let me ask this. Would it be really bad for PFL if he won because you'd have a Nurmagomedov lose, or would it be really good because this would be something of a star-making performance for a guy?
Well, I think it would be bad if Usman Nurmagomedov loses for them. I mean, he's got the Nurmagomedov name. He's a star. He's undefeated. Like he checks all the boxes of what you would want to have on your roster. That being said, Alfie Davis is a tricky stylistic matchup for just about everybody because of his stance, because of his unique striking, his diverse striking. That's always going to be something you have to keep your eye on, because when you look at like the Wonder Boys of the world and fighters like that, they've been able to get victories just because their opponents can't figure them out. Now, Usman will have 5 rounds to figure Alfie Davis out, but I thought that when you watched the last year's tournament, that Alfie, was really kind of a breakthrough fighter for the UFC, for the PFL, I should say, because he was able to really confuse his opponents and do a lot of dynamic things that they were not accustomed to. So if Usman is not taking him seriously, which, I'd be surprised if that's the case, because Khabib seems to work everybody just as hard for every single fight, regardless of who they are and who they're fighting. I think that Alfie can actually pose problems for Usman Nurmagomedov because he's such a tricky puzzle to solve.
He had a bit of a backstep when he lost to Mansour Barnawi, who was sort of the guy who's patented the giggler sweep in MMA, the knee lever. But then he had an amazing 2025. He stopped Clay Collard in round 1. He beat Brent Primus. And then this was the one I was very surprised by. He beat by decision Gadzi Rabadanov. I did not see that coming. That was actually pretty impressive. That being said, as I indicated, Aaron, he's lost to Mansour Barnawi and then Alexander Chablis. And it's like, those are not bad fighters by any stretch of the imagination, but they're a step down from Usman. Usman's ability to just play the levels here. He can strike on the feet if he needs to. He's a better athlete than I think Alfie is. And of course, if he needs to go to the control, he can do it. I will say one thing that I'm hoping to see from Nurmagomedov here is, him and Umar are very, very talented and can beat, if not every guy, just about every guy in their respective divisions. But they are a clear step down from Khabib and Islam to me. They don't have a great capacity to do damage. They have a great capacity to score, and they have a great capacity to control, and they have a great capacity to kind of maintain that. But they don't have a great capacity to really advance an attack towards the fight-ending scenarios very regularly. I'm not sure that's going to give Alfie Davis a lot of life, but it would be good for Nurmagomedov if you got an opponent, at least in theory, is this overmatched, that someone as capable as Nurmagomedov can finally kind of, I'm not going to say get over the hump exactly, but show some advancement in his finishing ability. This would be a good candidate, would it not, to have that kind of a thing showcased? I'd like to see some evidence of it.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a situation where he's going to get annoyed with Alfie Davis, eventually just go to his wrestling, take him down, and submit him. I think that's probably the most likely way this fight goes. But, when you ask me about how Alfie Davis can win this fight, I still think that you look at how confusing his game can be for people to figure out. I think that's really his best path, is to try to confuse and flummox Usman and make it kind of a, touch and go fight, get in, get out, hit him with some strikes, make sure that he doesn't allow Usman to close the distance. But at the same time, I think that if Usman can get just one takedown, that his prowess on the ground could be enough for him to beat Alfie Davis in just about any round.
One thing that is tilting to me about Usman is how overconfident he is constantly. I mean, he's very, very good, but to me, he takes it a little bit too far. Here he is saying Alfie Davis has zero chance.
Everybody who can go with you, like who come to the cage and stand against you, I think everybody have chance to win. But how I see this fight, zero chance to beat me.
Everyone has a chance except you, Alfie Davis.
Yeah, right. Mathematically, every other person would have a chance
in the world,
not you.
Yeah, just Alfie's out.
I will say this. There's 2 fights left, this being one of them, left on the deal of Nurmagomedov. Dan Hardy described the need for PFL to re-sign Usman Nurmagomedov as basically, I'm paraphrasing, but basically existential. Do you agree?
No, not really. I think that, you still need to have your big stars and you need to give people a reason to tune in. But I think that for them, it's going to be a really strategic year, because I think what John Martin's done so far, if you look at recent news, they got a deal with Migu in Japan, which is the same rights holder as the UFC. They got a deal with RMC Sport in France, which is the UFC's rights holder as well. They're getting good, big broadcast deals. And that's where their money's going to come from to sign guys like Usman Nurmagomedov. And I think John Martin's the right guy for that job in terms of getting in the right boardrooms and trying to sell the PFL. And if the PFL can have big events and can have big moments this year, I think it's going to give him more capacity to sell the rights to the PFL, because there aren't a lot of rights coming up in coming years. But it does seem like the rights market has shrunk a little bit from what it was about 5 years ago. That being said, I think that you look at where the PFL's at right now. If they lose Usman Nurmagomedov, is it existential? I don't know if it's existential. I think they can continue to do what they're doing well, which is cornering underserviced markets. You look at France, I think, is a big example for them. Those fight cards they do there are always amazing and electric. I think them going to Pittsburgh that's a perfect city to look at in the U.S. It's an underserviced market. Look for cities that the UFC have not been to in a long time and try to capitalize on people who just want to see good MMA in person. I think that's a smart move for them. I think smaller venues would be a good move for them, because they always seem louder if they're more full, 4,000 or 5,000 person venues. And I think that in Ireland, they've really done a great job of cornering that market, because their arena is not big enough to host the UFC event anymore. I think it only holds 11,000, 12,000 people. And I think that if they continue to do events there, the crowd's only going to get better and better, because they're so hungry for live mixed martial arts. So I think that if they can continue to find these untapped markets, I think that's really their best path, because then you can capitalize not just with TV deals, but also at the box office. And also it makes your shows feel bigger if the fans are really into it.
I don't disagree. I hope that they can. I hope that this year can be one of the better years and more memorable years in that organization's history. Let's move to the co-main event, which I've said this whole time is arguably the best fight all weekend. I'm not declaring that it is, but if I would put the top 3 fights, at least on paper, of the best fights this weekend, this would absolutely be on it. It's for the vacant welterweight championship between Ramazan Nurmagomedov, who is undefeated at 13-0, versus the basically undefeated Shamil Musayev, who is 20-0. This one absolutely bangs. Nurmagomedov enters this fight having won in his last 3 Jaleel Willis, Buddy Wallace, and then he beat Jason Jackson in a 5-rounder. That one got a little bit hairy, but it was pretty good. Shamil Musayev looks like an absolute destroyer of men. He enters this contest with 2 back-to-back wins over Murad Ramazanov, and then finally he got a stoppage win in the 3rd round in a great fight where he just looked amazing against Magomed Umalatov. I love this contest. I will tell you what, Aaron, I know there's a lot of promotions who are like, well, how many Russians do we really want to sign? How many names? Blah, blah, blah. And listen, every organization is going to have a different answer for themselves. But for PFL, who's going to be putting a premium on how many really great fighters we can get, I don't know what kind of a, how do I say this? I don't know what kind of a, impact having these kinds of names that are a little bit harder to pronounce for the average American will do for them by having them on their card. What I can say is there's no denying the quality of this. What is your sense of this matchup? And I'm guessing you favor Musayev, but size them both up for me.
Yeah, 2 undefeated fighters. Musayev, such a dynamic fighter, but they benched him last year. Like, he didn't fight at all last year. Why? You have this guy on your roster. That I don't understand, unless he was injured or something along those lines. But to me, I think that this is a really exciting fight if you look at it from like an X's and O's standpoint, because Nurmagomedov is a guy that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's a solid, diverse fighter. He's also a very patient fighter, whereas Musayev likes to bring the fight to his opponents. I do favor Musayev here. I do think that the line is a little bit long on this one because I think Nurmagomedov is a solid, well-rounded fighter who doesn't have a whole lot of deficiencies. He's not the most exciting fighter, and I think that's something that could slow Musayev down. Is Musayev, because he prioritizes making the fight exciting, if Nurmagomedov can slow the tempo of this fight down and make it more of a 1-for-1 fight, I think that's will play into his hand for this one. But yeah, this is a really solid fight on paper between 2 really high level guys, and I'm excited to see how it plays out because I think both guys have a really bright future.
Yeah, Musayev, I agree with you. In general, being sidelined for the year, not great. But what I would say is, as good as I think Nurmagomedov is, and he is good, he faded a little bit, not completely, but he faded a little bit down the stretch in that Jason Jackson fight. And of course, Jason Jackson being, he still lost, but being a savvy veteran kind of shows you what a more experienced fighter might be able to do. Musayev technically is more experienced, certainly, than Nurmagomedov. And the other part, too, is as good as Nurmagomedov is, I'm not sure what part of the game he's better than Musayev. He's got some different strengths, maybe some of the grappling, you could argue, certain positions anyway. But even then, I just feel like Musayev is, like, for as good as Nurmagomedov is, Musayev is like just a notch higher on a bunch of different considerations you could consider in that matchup. Nevertheless, one's been more active than the other one. Again, 2 undefeated fighters. That one absolutely bangs. Which brings us now to any other fight on this card, Aaron, that I'd like you to point out. For me, the Jesus Pinedo and Salamat Isbulayev fight is absolutely fantastic, and I'll tell you why. Number one, Salamat Isbulayev making his PFL debut, but undefeated at 9-0 and has looked like an absolute hammer on the regional scene, whereas Jesus Pinedo, 29 years of age, and sure, he's coming off of a loss to Movlid Habulayev. However, he had a hell of a run, beating Brendan Loughnane, Bubba Jenkins, Gabriel Braga twice, and then Adam Boric, again, losing to Habulayev in 2025, but otherwise, he has proven to be an all-action fighter, in your face, is not afraid of anyone. Love it. And we got this one as a pick'em, -108 for Pinedo, -112 for Isbulayev. Do you share my enthusiasm for this bout, or do you have your eye on another one?
No, I love this fight. I think that anytime you put Pinedo in there against an exciting fighter, you're going to get an awesome fight. And I think that you look at Isbulayev, what he's done on the regional scene, I don't know if this is going to be a bridge too far for him. He doesn't have quite as much experience as Pinedo, but Pinedo's just been such a joy to watch. And I think his fight, it says it's a loss on Tapology, but I thought that was a no contest with Habulayev, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know what.
Because you got a drug test failure?
Positive. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong on that. But either way, I think that's a really exciting fight. I think that Pinedo has always been a real pleasure to watch. The one that I want to see is the Lazy King. Whenever he fights, I'm watching. Unless my son has his belt test, as I mentioned, and I can't find it on any sort of broadcast partner. But I would love to see the Lazy King fight Ken Lee St. Louis. I think that's a really good fight. I'm surprised that the line isn't longer. Lazy King's about a -298, I think it is on DraftKings. It's like -300 range. I thought he'd be a bigger favorite against Kembley, but I'm excited to watch the Lazy King, and I think he's one of the better fighters on the PFL roster.
Yeah, we missed him for all of 2025. That organization out of France, Aries, they produce a ton of good guys, and he was one of the top guys over there, pulling out wins in ways that you were very, very surprising at the time. He did take all of last year off. It's good to see him back early this year. I hope we can get more out of him. That's definitely a fun one. I'd also add for folks, the guy who's opening the main card at heavyweight, Puya Ramani, might be a decent prospect at heavyweight. I mean, it's still too early to tell. He's only got 5 fights. You know, what can you really say? But he looks like he might be the goods. And as you indicated, up and down this card, Taylor Lapalus is on this. Denise Kielholtz is on this one. And beyond that, Rob Wilkinson is on this card as well. So there's a ton of fun stuff on this one, up and down. And of course, now look at the bottom of the screen. You can see we're going to start getting to the UFC weigh-in results as those start to pour in.
Yeah,
all right.
And on the topic of Ramani, he had a really tough camp. Apparently, his coach was killed in Iran, so
yes,
he's going to be coming into this one with a heavy heart for sure.
Yes, indeed, very, very difficult circumstances. So something to pay attention to. He looks like he might be something interesting, but again, he's got a very difficult uphill battle tomorrow. Let's go to topic number 3, and this one I take no pleasure in having a conversation about, but I do think it's actually important to do. Namely, the future of Shavkhat Rakhmonov. Here is a guy that I have pegged for a long time, as being somebody who you could say at a bare minimum will fight for a title. If not, you could maybe just outright declare, and obviously we'll have to see, but just look like a championship kind of fighter from a very, very early stage. I mean, has finished undefeated and has finished all of his opponents except for one, and he fought that one kind of injured and still managed to get the W against Ian Gary, but we have not seen him since. He missed all of 2025, and this week, Aaron, he was removed from the UFC rankings because he apparently re-aggravated that injury and is now going to be out another 9 or 10 months. To date, he's been out about 14 or 15, so add about another 9 on top of it. Let's put up this quote from, or this, I should say, the statement rather, from Shavkat, and I'll read it out here very quickly. A fighter's path has never been easy. Life doesn't give us challenges we can't overcome. Every dream comes at a price, and sometimes that price is your health. Today, I have to be honest, due to ongoing injuries, I've had another surgery and will need time to fully recover. As a result, my return to the octagon will be postponed. It's not easy to accept, but I truly believe every setback is part of a bigger plan. I will come back stronger, smarter, and hungrier than ever. My goal is still alive. The UFC belt still has to come to Kazakhstan. Thank you to everyone who stands by me no matter what. This is not the end of the journey. It's an important chapter of it. Aaron, how devastating is this for Shavkhat Rakhmonov's future?
For his future, I mean, that's a good question, because ultimately it's going to be about 2 years off. And we've seen fighters have 2 years off and be able to come back and return to form. But, he was peaking. He was still undefeated. He was right at the top of the food chain for the welterweight division. He was right there. And I mean, that's got to be devastating for him, knowing that he was in the driver's seat in terms of championship contention and now needs to take possibly another year off. It's just got to be heartbreaking for him, heartbreaking for his camp. And really not much else to say about that. Is it going to hinder him when he comes back? That's the thing I don't know. But he does have so many intangibles with how well-rounded he is, how big he is for the division. I still think that he has the capacity to bounce back and return to form. I don't think that he's old enough that you could write him off at this point.
I mostly agree, but I think a little bit different, which is, do I think, so for example, folks have asked me, can you think of scenarios where in combat sports, a guy took multiple years off and came back to be champion? Dominic Cruz would be the obvious one in UFC, right? So that's one. And you could also point to other fighters. So for example, Vitaly Klitschko between 2004 and 2008 comes back and fights Samuel Peters, wins a world title. Sugar Ray Leonard took time off from 82 to 84 and then 84 to 87 for a detached retina in his left eye. And so he had 3 years off between 84 and 87, but then fights Hagler in 87 and defeats him. And so he was able to reclaim a title. But here's the problem, I think, for Rakhmonov, which is that he is losing the years of his career from age 30 to 32. So the first problem I have, Aaron, is that it's smack in the middle of his prime, like the heart of his prime he's losing 2 years. Second of all, this is not a guy who fully matured into a championship level fighter. Like, he got really, really close to it, and maybe could have won, but didn't achieve those kinds of heights early, and is trying to bounce back to a level or standard he's developed before. He just never hit it at all. So I still think he can be a champion. I think ruling that out to me seems foolish, but I don't see how you can lose 2 years of your prime over a knee injury and then think that your career won't be noticeably different after the fact. I think that's where I come down.
Yeah, I don't think that's all fair. It's, I guess, going to have to be a wait and see approach, right? Because we have to see what he's like when he returns, and if he's able, if his body even holds up after this too, right? If you're that injury prone, or prone to having that injury recur like it has, if that is the case, we haven't been given too many details as to exactly what the injury is. I know it was a knee injury the first time around, and I don't know if it's the same knee or what the problem is, but it seems like a bevy of health problems. And when you are big, for a division, and you cut a lot of weight, you could be more injury prone as well, because your I guess your musculature is a little bit on the nimbler side because of how little you weigh for somebody of that stature. So I don't know if that plays a factor or anything along those lines, but let's see how he looks when he comes back. It's hard to really say now, but your point about him being in his prime is certainly valid, especially not being able to train and improve during those years, because it seems like those are the peak welterweight years, are between like 31 and 36 to have your most success.
Someone asked me this question, so I'm going to ask it to you. If he comes back and he's ready to go January of 2027, and let's just say, I'm just positing a scenario, UFC says, you know what, we're going to give him a title shot. We're going to go right to it. Who would it be against?
Well, I mean, probably against Islam. I don't see anybody right now beating Islam. I thought that Shavkat was the guy who was going to give Islam the toughest run. But if I had to guess, I would say Islam, if he is still fighting at this time next year at welterweight.
Do you think how many more fights do you think Islam has left?
I don't know. He hasn't really talked much about retirement. He seems pretty happy to continue fighting. How old is he now? 34, something along those lines?
34, 35.
34, 35, yeah. So probably, I would guess, at least 4 or 5 more fights.
Let me double check that. How old is Islam? Islam Makhachev.
I think he's probably 34, 35.
He is 34. He'll be 35 in October. So yeah, 34. He's got a little bit of time left. I guess we'll see. I'm not sure. In terms of the rest of the welterweight division, in your mind, is Rakhmonov a bad matchup for everyone? Or like Ian Gary, for example, has tried to say like, oh, I'm the one who sent him along this way, when in fact he was injured like heading into the bout. Is there a way to say which welterweight this benefits the most?
It benefits all of them. They don't have to fight them. I think that you look at the top of and I think probably Kamaru Usman probably benefits from it, because it's one less person for the UFC to consider for a title fight against Islam. That being said, like I really hope that, we, after coming off last weekend when we saw Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez in basically an immediate rematch for Volkanovski, and we've seen some of these older fighters get cracks at the titles that they really should not be getting, and they end up looking like a total wasted title fight. I really hope that we get to see Makhachev against Gary or Michael Morales. Like I really hope that's the next step. I just want to learn something from the title fight. And while Usman is a good, like, marketable name, he's a legend of the division, I get it. I just want to see a competitive fight.
Gun to your head, though, you think they do the Usman fight?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
That would
at the
be
White House?
Guess. Like, if you're giving me odds, I would say that he's probably the front runner. And yeah, maybe at the White House. I mean, if they want to stack that card up, for sure. But that being said, like, if we're looking at it from a Paramount Plus standpoint, it's all about viewership and not about buys. So I think that you need to take that into consideration when you're looking at, do they need to have something that's more marketable like Kamaru Usman if that's what their perception is? Or can you just have a great fight and people are going to watch? Because if the numbers from the first event that came out are any indication, I feel like it's the brand that people are tuning in for rather than specific fighters.
Yeah. I guess we'll see. It certainly can't hurt to have your number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world against a big name. But I agree with you. I think Gary or Morales are much more The Morales. Which one of those is more interesting to you?
Morales.
Yeah.
Morales.
Gary, I think, is very good defensively, but I have a hard time seeing how he's going to put sustained offense on Islam. Whereas Morales is such a tank.
Yeah, he's been a hammer. And I mean, he's also huge for the division. He's got a diverse arsenal. I think his length could give Islam some problems. I don't think Islam's fought anybody like that would be that big in his career. In fact, I'm fairly certain that he hasn't, because if you look at 155, there aren't really people with that kind of body archetype. So that's the match that intrigues me the most by far.
All right, with that in mind, let's start talking about the MMA hits and misses. Some news and notes from around the sport here for topic number 4. We start with Ilia Topuria. His messy divorce, his split. I don't really care about the details of it. It's not really interesting to me one way or the other. However, it is in this particular sense, narrowly, namely that it has come to a close. At least it seems like it's come to a close. He and his, I guess, ex-wife have come to some kind of an agreement, and he put out sort of a bunch of stuff on social media indicating, you can see here, he's going to go back to training. You can see he's already, well, I mean, I guess he never really stopped, but he kind of indicated that he's unbridled now at this point to return. Should this bout, Aaron Bronsteter, should this bout against Justin Gaethje, right, the unification, so to speak, of the UFC lightweight title, should this headline the White House card, which, by the way, show this quote card we have here from Justin Gaethje on the Pat McAfee show. Put this one up if we can. This is what he said. Ilia Topuria on the White House card. It has to be, no other option. I think will be the main event. But if Islam Makhachev is there, he'll be in the higher weight class, so they might do that one instead. Where does this one end up and why?
Oh, it's a good question, because I think you have to look at it from two lenses. One lens is, do you want to build the biggest fight card possible with the biggest names? Like, do you want a John Jones or a Conor McGregor on that fight card? Like, is that a must that you want to have that sort of name value? Or do they want to just build the best possible card with the champions that they currently have and what they have to work with that are not kind of those Hail Marys, where you're looking at like a bringing back a kind of generational star to compete? And I think that if you were going to take a title fight right now and say one title fight is going to headline the White House card, this would probably be it. I think that you've got your American fighter in Justin Gaethje, who has never had a boring fight. You've got Ilia Topuria, who is the biggest rising star in the sport. I don't think that there's a better showcase you could have right now at the top of the White House card than that, if you're choosing, again, strictly from the championship fights.
Long Island, they going to put this one at the main event at the White House?
I think so. There's
Tell
no
me
other
why.
like clear front runner besides like a John Jones fight, and we saw the news with him this week that
Why,
he has,
why not?
like,
Why not Islam versus Kamaru?
that ain't White Housey. I don't know.
But you're
It's
just
like-
saying that. Tell me why.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's Kamaru, born in Nigeria, right? Or was he born in America? Just with
He
Nigerian
might have been
parents?
born in Nigeria.
All right, he grew up in America, but either way, he's kind of, Nigerian. And then you have Islam, who's, Russian, and they said no Russians on the White House card. I don't know if that's true, but I just feel like, I feel like the Ilya Justin fight is way more like the American can prevail, where like, I don't know, Islam Usman.
Dude, the American's going to get fucking stretched here.
Yeah, but he can, like the Usman
He
one
can.
is like, oh, the
He's saying there's a
Nigerian born guy raised in America. I don't know. It's like,
No,
it'd
I
be
mean,
like,
I get the angle, because it's like, okay, you've got an American in the fight. It's for title unification, and Justin Gaethje is arguably the most exciting fighter in MMA history, right? He's got a claim to that. And then if he wins, wow, tremendous, incredible story, the whole 9 yards. But if he loses, and he loses in the way that Topuria typically dispatches his victims, you're now blowing up a guy who's either number 1 pound for pound or number 2 pound for pound in the world, and making him look even better. And by the way, also speaks English as well. Kind of
I
a
just
good thing
feel
there.
like the German, Spaniard, Georgian winning isn't as bad as the Russian winning. And like, they said specifically, we don't want Russians on the card. Like, I don't know if they care that the Georgian, Spaniard, German wins,
Yeah.
Who said we don't
yeah.
want Russians on the card? Have you heard that before?
Marab said it, I take that man's word verbatim. I mean, I took my earpiece out doing that. I take that man's word to heart, but
Yeah, Long Island's finest. Tbilisi's finest, but also Long Island's finest.
did you say Love Island at first or Long?
I said
think
Long.
like you said.
I
Long.
thought
Is
I
he
heard
on Love Island? I
too.
don't know if he was on Love Island. I figured he would be a bad candidate.
No, I
for
thought you
something
were
like that.
just a little Freudian
no.
slip there, maybe watching some Love Island. I don't know.
No, I don't watch that bullshit. Are you kidding me? But you know what, my watch. You guys ever heard of this show? You probably have never heard of this show. Have you heard of La Casa de los Famosos? The House of the Famous. Have you heard of this
course.
show?
I
Either
watch
of you?
that all the time.
Bro, this show, I'm not kidding. Ready for this? It's 2 hours every single night. Hold on. Every single night, 8 to 10 p.m. every single night. Playing the crickets. They have cameras you can watch the people in the house before and after that 2 hours. The show goes, ready for this, for 4 months. 4 months.
2 hours a night?
Every single night. 7 days a week. And my wife watches this show, and it drives me crazy.
I hate to tell you, because my girlfriend watches Love Island. It's the same fucking thing. It's like
2 hours a night for 4 months.
It's with all the commercials and shit. It's at least 90 minutes, and it's, if not 7 days a week, like 6 days a week. Like, it's literally a new episode every night. It drives me crazy.
It's insane. I hate this, like this expanded content format. And it's, dude, it's like the most. It's like, dude, they got the least interesting people in Colombia to have conversations with each other, and it's like, I don't get the fucking appeal, but it's 2 hours every night, and it's killing me. I just got to be honest about that.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't watch a lot of reality TV here. My wife and I have been watching The Traitors recently, and I'm all The Traitors.
We watch that too, Aaron.
Yeah, I'm all Traitors out now. Yeah. I think I've watched enough.
Trainers or traitors?
Traitors.
Like Benedict Arnold or
yeah. It's basically a show. It's almost like Murder Wink, but like 2 people are assigned as traitors at the beginning of the show, and there's like 20 people on the show, and they're like murdering people on the show, and you got to figure out who the traitor is. I'm not a big reality TV show but I've enjoyed this show, but my wife's like on season 2 of the New Zealand series of The Traitors, and there's like a Hungarian series, and it's a lot.
I've heard that the Bronsteter household loves prop quiz. Is this true?
It's the only thing my kids have ever watched me do is like they stumbled upon me. They saw my picture on the thumbnail when they opened the YouTube app, and they watched me on prop quiz.
Let's go. New episode airing at 1:30.
You're gonna be on prop quiz again?
Yeah.
They must think that you're like Pat Sajak or something.
Who?
You, Long Island.
I'm Pat Sajak.
They must think it's like a big show because I'm on. They get to see their dad on TV.
Oh yeah. Elsewhere in MMA news, UFC President Dana White was obviously in court for a very specific purpose. They're trying to find what the plaintiffs, this case would be the fighters, believe are missing pieces of information related to what was held on phones or other kinds of record keeping. That's a little bit in the weeds. However, there were some interesting revelations that came out. Well, I say interesting, Aaron, but I'm not sure how interesting they are, which is to say it's noteworthy that basically Dana White said, basically since Endeavor took over UFC, so since 2017, but at some point in 2016, and of course, I got to say MMA Draw did some great coverage of this, but some other outlets did as well, but certainly Zach Arnold and Nate Wilcox did some great coverage. But the basic gist from at least the first day in Dana White's testimony there was that he doesn't do any part of the matchmaking, and he doesn't do any of the fight contract negotiations. Really, all of that is done in large part by Hunter Campbell. My response to that is that really new information? I mean, I guess it feels to me like it's new to some people, but didn't Fight Inc., that TV show they did briefly, kind of show that? And at a bare minimum, it just seems like, how can a guy be as involved as he is in as many projects and then also be involved in the weeds on those kinds of things? It's Hunter's show at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. I think you put it in a good way. Is like Dana doesn't get into the weeds that much. Except for with production, where it seems like he really looks through it with a fine-tooth comb and looks for little ways to improve it all the time. That's what he kind of obsesses over, and he's most hands-on with in terms of the actual UFC product. But when you look at the matchmaking, it feels to me like he kind of lets people do their thing, and then he gives it the green light. And I think in a lot of the facets of the business, that's kind of how Dana is. You know, one thing about Dana is he really implicitly trusts everybody that has a job at the UFC to do the best at what they do. Like he's very good at finding people that are very good at certain things, giving them the keys and saying, okay, you do this. Let me know if you have any issues that come up. And, you know, if you want to run something by me, run it by me. And then ultimately let me know what it is and I'll give you the yay or nay. And it's almost always going to be a yay. Because that's just, from being around him for years, that's the one thing that I've seen about him that I think has been, you know, pretty standard, is that he puts a lot of faith in the people around him to do what they're best at and tries to give them, latitude in that regard.
He's even talked about it. Like what he wants is an UFC that can run without him. He's even said, I want to set up a system where it can just go on its own. And I think this is part of it. I think some people didn't realize that because it didn't used to be this way, right? 10, well, I guess more than 10 years at this point, but 15 years ago, he was very hands-on with some of the stuff. Lorenzo was at that time too, but I think a lot of that has changed. I do think there was one other interesting note from this testimony that Hunter Campbell gave. And again, we'll see what the upshot is for the court case itself. But one of the things that came out also, Aaron, was that Rico Verhoeven, they tried to sign him to the UFC, but he decided to go box. And I guess I'm not sure what to say about that. I don't know what they offered him. Who's to say? What I will say is this. If you can't get Rico and you're looking at the state of the heavyweight division, I know what you're going to say is Dana would never allow it. But just let me say this. Shouldn't they re-sign Francis Ngannou? Shouldn't they do that?
They should re-sign Francis Ngannou. They should sign Rico Verhoeven. They should do whatever it takes to get this heavyweight division some sort of infusion of life. That's all I've got to say about the heavyweight division, really. It's like, because if you look at like the PFL, for example, can you name any? I mean, I guess they have Nemkov, but outside of like Nemkov, who are the heavyweights that they have there that you would even want on the UFC roster, right? Like heavyweight as a whole, even in regional MMA.
Yeah.
Like our matchmaker at Unified's like, do you know of any heavyweights that are available? Because there just aren't that many. It's a totally watered down division in terms of depth across the board. So
I've said it's a global problem. It's not a UFC problem.
Yeah, like, I mean, if the UFC could get Renan Ferreira from the PFL, they should do that. Like, they should just get as many, heavyweights that can fight as possible. Like, ultimately, that should be it has historically been the glamour division in combat sports, and now it just really isn't, whether you're looking at boxing or MMA, just because there aren't that many fighters. It's like a carousel. Even in boxing, we're going to touch on Chisora versus Wilder later on. Like, it's just basically like, who hasn't fought who yet? Or if they did fight, was it a close fight? Like, it's just a merry-go-round of the same people fighting each other. And like when we talked about Almeida and Kuniev earlier, and I said the winner's going to fight like Waldo Cortez Acosta probably, or somebody else in like the top 10, just because the top 10 barely moves. It's almost static. Tai Tuivasa just lost his 6th straight. Is he still ranked? Like, he was ranked last week. Like, he's still ranked 15th.
He's
the
15.
New rankings. He's still ranked 15th. He's lost 6 in a row. And he's the 15th best heavyweight in the UFC right now. It's absurdity to think about that, right? Like,
Bro, he's
first off, put like Steven Asplund at 15 or somebody else. Like, if you're doing the rankings and you still have Tai Tuivasa at 15, you're just not looking at the roster.
He is 0-6 in the last 4 years.
Walter Walker and Josh Hogan are both unranked and arguably.
No, Walter's 14.
Oh, all right, sorry. But Josh Hogan is unranked. You could put him 15.
Put him at 15. Yeah, put somebody at 15.
Would you pick Hogan over Tuivasa? I would.
Think about this. If it was possible, they could potentially have a heavyweight division that added Francis Ngannou, Rico Verhoeven, and Gable Steveson in like 2 months if they really wanted to. Yeah. So it's like, but I doubt it's going to happen.
And last but not least, I'm only bringing this up because I just want the folks to be aware of it. Nick Diaz, who's 42 years of age, recently sat down for an interview. He is out of this rehab situation he was in Mexico, which is certainly great to see. However, he says he wants to keep fighting. Let's play this clip, and I want you to react to it.
Do you think you're going to come back, or are you done?
Yeah, I'd like to. I can fight 185, but I'd like to fight 170.
Yeah, you'd fight Islam?
Yeah, or the other guy.
Usman?
Chimaev.
Oh, Chimaev at 185.
Oh,
yeah. How do you think those matchups go?
I think I could beat both of them.
Okay.
I could lose, too, but I mean, I can see myself winning those fights. It's just matchup and fighters, you know what I mean? It's coming in with the right formula and fighting the right fight.
Do you think you're going to come back, or are you...
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, I am glad to see that Nick looks a little bit better. I think that apparently some of the relationship that he had with Nate is at least being to a degree repaired. But the idea of him fighting Aaron to me seems like a catastrophically bad idea.
I said that when he fought Robbie Lawler. I said, how, like, we've seen what this guy's been through all these years, and you're bringing him back for a fight with Lawler. And I thought he actually looked good against Lawler. Based on what my expectations were, I thought he looked good against Lawler. But we don't need to run that back. We don't need to do this again. There are all these other promotions out there, like maybe a bare knuckle or something that's more striking based, that I think he would probably do better at than fighting the best fighters in the world right now in the UFC. I mean, if you wanted to put him against like Nico Price or something, or somebody that's like on the lower end of the division, just to see what he's got, even that I don't think is a great idea. But to put him in there against Khamzat or who else did you say, Islam? I mean, that's just a non-starter.
How many more fights do you think either Diaz brother has left? Because you would imagine Nate still probably has an itch for one more, and there might be an appetite for one more depending on the matchup.
Are you talking about UFC fights? Like,
yeah, let's say UFC fights. Yeah,
I would set the under at half.
Wow.
I don't think either of them are going to fight in the UFC again.
Wow, not even Nate for like one kind of.
Unless it's the Conor trilogy, I don't see them bringing Nate back either.
Wow, so it's Conor trilogy or bust for you for Nate in terms of the UFC.
I would say so, and then for Nick, I don't think they're going to bring.
Should
Nick
be
back.
done.
I don't think it's. I think that's a bad idea.
It's obviously very easy for folks to be like, "Oh, well, we're not paying your bills. You shouldn't fight anymore." But at 42, he's taken a lifetime of damage. I would really hope that it could be some other kind of opportunity for him out there.
I think more of the damage has been outside of the cage for Nick. Honestly, like
the combination of the two. I mean,
yeah, that's the thing that worries me. Is just I know he's gone to rehab and hopefully he's clean and everything's good, but. Yeah, we've seen some scary clips of him over the years, and I just don't see the upside of him coming back and fighting again.
Last but not least, let's do boxing's hits and misses. There was a lot of strange, but let's say somewhat smaller stories circulating outside of the sport. Floyd Mayweather is suing Showtime and Steven Espinosa for $340 million. Let me read to you guys very quickly kind of what he is claiming. The basic gist of it is as follows. He mentions Al Heyman, his longtime manager and advisor, in the lawsuit, but he's actually not suing Al Heyman. He's just suing Espinosa and Showtime. What he says is Heyman allegedly, this is from the New York Times or Athletic, Heyman, according to Mayweather, Heyman allegedly set up a series of bank accounts under his name and those of people working with him without disclosing the details to Mayweather. Mayweather alleges Heyman then began working with Espinosa to serve as a sort of financial middleman of the boxer's behalf. Instead of going to Mayweather directly, his earnings were deposited into Heyman's network of bank accounts, which he maintained with an associate named Jeff Morris. Those accounts would then transfer the money to Mayweather after deducting Heyman's cut. Those transfers were often short tens of millions of dollars by the time they reached Mayweather. According to the suit, that's because Heyman allegedly deducted large cuts marked as, quote, reimbursements, end quote, creating the image of, on paper, that he was recouping money he previously fronted Mayweather. Mayweather's lawsuit states that that was not the case and that those moves were solely to enrich Heyman. It should also be noted, Aaron, that a recent reporting by Business Insider that Floyd appears to be flat broke. He's doing all kinds of advertisements and is trying to get some kind of exhibition fight against sort of like, 2000s, late 90s kind of kickboxer Mike Zambidis for Athens, Greece. What do you make of this lawsuit?
I don't really know what to make of it because I don't really understand it. I think that he obviously feels like he's been wronged. And if that's the case and the evidence shows that, then maybe he'll win the lawsuit. But I don't really see what the news value is of it, to be honest. Until it goes to court, it seems like an interesting. It's Floyd always has interesting stuff going on around him, but Floyd being flat broke, given the amount of money that he's made over time, I think is fairly alarming.
Dude, he made without endorsements. Remember, this guy never hawked shoes or energy drinks or anything. And he made over $1 billion in fight purses. And then for him to be in this predicament where, Business Insider is talking about how he's in debt to jewelers, he's taking jewels off consignment and not returning them, and just all kinds of other problems. Plus the guy who is his current advisor has been charged and previously in various courts in New York and other places for forms of fraud. It's like maybe Al Heyman did steal from him. I do not know. I genuinely have no clue. But I would say my spidey senses are tingling that I don't know how. I don't know if this is frivolous, but it's just happening at a weird time in Floyd's life. Does that make sense? Like he's doing it at a time where he appears to be uniquely financially vulnerable. But here he is.
Yeah, I mean, why now? Why today? Like this is an event that happened how many years ago? What we're talking about 8 years ago, something along those lines.
More than that. He signed. He fought for Showtime. I mean, I guess you could count the Logan Paul one, but really from 2013 to what, 2019 or so, 2020, something like
I thought
that.
this was specifically zeroing in on the Maymack fight and the money.
So the Pacquiao fight, which was what, 2017?
Was it the Pacquiao fight? I thought that this was about the Maymack fight in specific. Was he
Maymack and Pacquiao?
Oh, and Pacquiao. Okay.
Yeah. So 2015 to 2017, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I get a bit of a weird feeling with this one.
Yeah, it does seem like Floyd does not make very good decisions outside of the ring. Makes great ones in the ring.
Yeah,
outside the ring, has
incredible decision maker inside. Yes. Shakur Stevenson obviously had a big win over Teofimo Lopez, but has lashed out at the WBC for wanting $100K in fees for a bout they weren't even sanctioning. If you don't understand this, you can see some of the tweets here from Shakur: $100K to some crooks who don't even deserve it. And then he just said, I just paid these dudes after my last fight. What the hell I'm giving you all $100K for right now because y'all got beef with Bud. So come at me. The issue is as follows. The WBC cited that its rules prohibit champions, and he was one of them, from simultaneously holding world titles from other governing bodies in weight classes separate from divisions in which they hold the WBC belt. So, of course, what happened here is he had the 35 belt, moved up to 40 to get the WBO belt, and then they got mad at him. Is this an example of fighters being stingy? Or I just have to say here, Aaron, at a time when I think sanctioning bodies should be doing everything possible to save their skin, they keep walking into PR nightmares, only adding to the ammunition that is already being used against them.
I was about to say the same thing. Like, they're facing potentially an existential crisis, and they're taxing Shakur Stevenson and looking, putting themselves out there in a negative light. Plus, there's the story about Suleiman being angry that he didn't get a seat ringside at Canelo versus Crawford, and he's like been furious about this. Like, this is the way you want to be representing sanctioning bodies today. It just seems to me like perhaps the wrong move. That's just I'm on the outside looking in here, Luke. I'm not a big boxing guy, but just from an outsider standpoint, it certainly seems like you have bigger fish to fry right now than not getting a seat to an event.
I will tell you, those of us in MMA, we kind of know, the MO of how the industry works. I think that some of these guys in boxing, particularly Mauricio Suleiman at WBC, does it seem to you like, this is my read, does it seem to you like they are grossly underestimating what TKO wants to do and what they can do?
Oh, yeah, 100%. They seemingly have thrown no weight behind themselves in that regard, and then just continuously do things that make them look even worse at this time, which to me is just baffling. But again, I'm on the outside looking in, but again, maybe that gives me better perspective, or maybe it gives me worse perspective, but that's what I'm seeing from an outsider's standpoint, is that they're just making all the wrong moves here.
And then last but not least, there is a plan for Deontay Wilder versus Derek Chisora here in this year. I think it's in a few months. I'm not exactly sure the date. I'll pull it up here in just a second. You can see the face-off there. What is your level of interest? They were initially saying Deontay Wilder was going to fight Usyk, which I thought was a terrible idea. I don't think Wilder should be fighting at all. It's April 4th, by the way. I don't think Wilder should be fighting at all. I think he has looked terrible of late. I guess if you're going to fight and the choices are Chisora or Usyk, it's better for him that he's fighting Chisora. And at a different time, I'd say, wow, this is kind of a fun fight between two guys who are a little bit rough around the edges, but certainly Wilder, a power puncher, and Derek Chisora, a bit of a bite down on the mouthpiece and throw guy. What's your level of interest in this fight in 2026, April 4th?
Well, I'm going to look like the MMA guy again here, but why didn't they do Wilder and Francis Ngannou? Like, it seems like if Ngannou's going to turn down the Paul fight, that to me would be the move, is you have Deontay Wilder take on Francis Ngannou and make it into some big exhibition. But maybe the ship has sailed on those sort of fights. In terms of Wilder and Chisora, like they're just those 10 heavyweights that I mentioned that you can just kind of interchange and move to face one another. Those are just two of those guys. And it seems like have they fought each other before? Probably not. And that's why they're making this fight. That seems like that's the way they book heavyweight boxing now, is like, oh, that guy hasn't fought that guy, and he's one of these 10 guys that we have in the stable of heavyweights. So I think that's probably why this fight is happening, kind of out of necessity. And that's, I think, why Wilder was being touted for a fight with Usyk, is they haven't fought each other.
Yeah, I mean, again, but that's a fight that would have made sense. I don't know, 6-7 years
Usyk
ago.
would absolutely style on this version of Deontay Wilder.
It would be terrible for him. By the way, we have an interesting clip of Chisora being all buddy about Deontay when the fight's over. Let's roll it.
One of my favorite things for this whole weekend, I introduced him to fish and chips at Barrow Market, so I'm buzzing about that. I enjoy that.
This is real, Derek. This isn't sort of playing games here, the fish and chips.
No, listen, it's real, because he's my boy. You understand? After this fight, I might go stay in Alabama at least for like a week with my family and just hang out there. Listen, I don't want to sell this fight with violence, because there's too much violence in the world right now. Right now, we're just happy to be in the same room and just hanging out with each other. But I believe April, when he arrives in April, I think he arrives one day and he comes back, and the first press conference, it's done. You know, friendship is out the window. We actually put the friendship in the bag for the time being, and then we are at it.
It'll be at London's O2 Arena, April 4th. I'm sure it'll be gross.
Could we get people to follow Chisora and his family around Alabama during their family trip there?
Yeah, have a good time in Alabama.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be great, but, you know, there's charming parts, I suppose, to many places in the earth. In any event, that is our hits and misses here and our top 5 on the show. All right, Long Island, what do you have for us here for the rest of today's program?
First up, we're going to play a segment. We've played it before, higher or lower. So I'll give you each an over-under. You just let me know the answer. I'll cue each of you up, but you can both chime in. LT, you first. First 3 UFC title fights of 2026 were an interim title fight with the clear number 1 guy not involved, an unnecessary rematch in which the clear number 1 and number 2 contenders were not involved. And next up, we have a BMF title fight. We all know I feel that is a meaningless title. So my question to you is, higher or lower than 4.5, the amount of actual number 1 contenders fight for a title in 2026?
Ooh. Wow. Okay, let me think about that.
I want to pull up the rankings myself because yeah, like for example, at light heavyweight, Carlos Olberg is ranked number 3, but to me, he's the clear
he's
number
kind of
1
de facto
guy.
number 1.
So
Yeah,
I'll let that count. Like just who clearly should be up next, regardless.
I think if you combine men's and women's over the course of a year, I can take the over. But I do think that you set the line at a pretty good spot because it's going to be right around this number.
Yeah, because we're already going 3 pay-per-views down. We have what, 10 left? And
yes, 10 left.
Minimum 1 title fight on each usually.
But
Some
they could
have
they could
2. Yeah.
put 2 on a card, you know.
Yeah, of course. So minimum 10 left, we'll say. Like, yeah. Aaron,
What do you think, Aaron?
I'll take the overall. So I'm looking at the rankings right now. So Pantoja, I think, is once he's healthy, he's going to get a title fight. He's ranked number 1 right now. You've got Movsar. If Movsar beats Lerone Murphy, he probably gets the next title shot in that division. You got Merab with the Merab rematch, so you got 3 there. And then the women's divisions, I think Zhang Weili, if she's going to fight at strawweight again, will get a title shot. And Natalia Silva at women's flyweight, I think, gets it. And then Cyril Gane rematch, that's 6. So
all right.
I think if we're looking at 6 and maybe one of those doesn't happen, you're still hitting your over.
All right. Very true. Aaron, this next one's for you. We all know you love collecting and listening to vinyl. You have a few behind you right there. I'm curious how deep that collection actually goes. So higher or lower than 249.5, the amount of records in your collection?
It's way over.
All right. Yeah, I didn't know where to set the line, man.
Way
That's
over,
a lot.
Yeah,
that
way
is
over 249.5.
What are we thinking? Thousands?
Yeah, it's over 1,000 for sure.
How do you organize it?
Alphabetically, but I also have certain sections of my, like I've got several holders, organizers, I guess you would call them, and I have them alphabetized, but there's also like certain sections where like maybe I have it by genre or I have it by like a certain label. It's kind of, I know where to find stuff. It's my own system.
All right. How much space does this take up? Thousands?
Oh, it takes
like an entire room.
A good deal of space. So
yeah.
In this room that I'm in right now, there's 1, 2, 3, and then the room next to me, there's another 3. So it takes a good amount of space.
Damn. LT, do you own any vinyls?
Not fucking one.
Not one. Wow.
Not one.
I have about 30, but
I think my wife has maybe a handful, but not me.
All right, LT. Alexander Volkanovski said he's willing to take on all challengers, including Evloev, Murphy, Silva, and even Arman Sarukian. But he is 37 years old. Father Time catches up with everyone. So my question to you is higher or lower than 1.5? The amount of contenders Volk will beat before retiring or leaving the division.
I'll put it at 1. I'll take the under. He might face more, but I think eventually this is going to come to a close. But I think he'll probably get 1.
Okay.
So I'll say 1.
Aaron?
Under.
I'm going to take the over. I think that he beats Evloev, if that's who it ends up being, or Murphy. And then I think he can beat whoever, like if it's Gian Silva or whoever else ends up fighting him. I think he can win 2 more. And then he'll probably either call it a day, or if he's really rolling, maybe he'll keep going. But I mean, to do what he's doing at 37 at bantamweight is wild.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under.
Sorry, at featherweight, I should say.
Unless there's favorable matchmaking, I don't see him beating 2 of them. You know, like if he gets John Silva as one of them, then I think he could beat 2 of them. But I don't really know otherwise. Aaron, this one's for you. Quillen Salkild secured his 4th straight UFC win on Saturday and seems ready for a crack at the top 15. So you could pull up the rankings if you don't already have them. Higher or lower than 7.5, the amount of top 15 lightweights you would favor Quillen Salkild to beat.
Over under 7.5 in the lightweight division. I'll put that at the under.
Okay. Is there anyone you would favor him over? I'm assuming at least
in the top 15.
Yeah.
Michael Chandler, Benil Dariush, and maybe Moicano, 3.
Oh, okay.
And maybe Dan Hooker too. Maybe Dan Hooker, but I would say 3.
LT, you adding anyone to that list? Maybe a Faraz Ziam, a Manuel Torres.
Not enough to get the over. I'd still take the under. I think he could maybe beat 5 or 6 of them right now, but I'm not sure about taking the over.
Are we talking 8? Favor to beat, like based on what would he be a favorite in those fights, or who do I think he would beat?
No, just like who do you think he would beat? We're not talking odds wise. Just like
okay. Yeah, I still take the under.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they do kind of coincide what the odds would be and what we kind of think, but either way. LT, you always say you prefer fights to be earlier and wish they could all be finished by sundown. That is a direct quote from you on Monday. So my question to you, PFL this Saturday seems right up your alley. Higher or lower than 4.5, the amount of PFL fights you will watch live, specifically live on Saturday?
0, none live. But it's not some kind of formal protest. I'm actually going on a family trip this afternoon for the weekend. I'll be back Sunday afternoon before the Super Bowl, so I'm going to watch them all then.
All right.
Now the question is, if I didn't have that, how many would I watch live?
Yeah.
I would take the over.
But just 5. You're just watching the main card.
Or most of the main card, and I might catch a couple of prelims, you know what I mean? That kind of thing, but yes.
Aaron, planning on watching any of these on Saturday?
Can
I watch it in Canada? I mean, if you tell me the channel it's on, maybe I'll watch it. Or the platform.
Dude, isn't that so fucked up that it's like the Canadians don't even know how to watch this fucking shit?
I mean, we could sail the seas. You could probably find it,
but Aaron's an ethical
not advise
guy.
that.
I mean, all I said was I have a boat, you could sail the seas. That's it.
That's right. You have a boat.
I'll sail to Buffalo, New York, and watch it on ESPN Unlimited.
We don't
sail to Rochester I've got Lake Ontario. It's a 10-minute walk. Hop in my gurney and just head across to Rochester and watch it at a bar there.
All right. There you go. Aaron, this one's for you. You once told Luke in BC you were a varsity athlete in high school, which got me thinking.
I never said I was a varsity athlete in high school. That's a misnomer.
It got me thinking about high school sports in general. So, higher or lower than 2.5, the amount of sports you played for your high school?
Yeah. Oh, that's an under. The question that was asked was I more of a mathlete or an athlete? And I failed grade 10 and 11 math, and played basketball after school. So I failed at math, and I was still successfully able to play sports. So I was more of I went out of my way to play sports. I was just really bad at math.
I got you. LT, did you play any sports in high school? I'm assuming no, because you went to really really good athletic high schools, right? No
I did
offense
go to
to
very
you,
good
but,
athletic
like,
high schools, but I didn't play. I moved around in high school. I went to one high school for freshman, sophomore, and then a different high school for junior, senior, which is very just disruptive to your life. But no, at that point, I wasn't really interested in that kind of stuff. But I was a mathlete.
You weren't like Kwame Brown's team. Kwame Brown was on the Wizards though. He wasn't a high school.
He was from Brunswick, Georgia. But like you can just look this up. I went to Valdosta High School for my freshman, sophomore year, and they've produced like 1 million people who've gone to the league. So
mostly NFL players, right?
Huh?
Or mostly NFL, right? Or
in terms of like versus basketball, yeah, it's a football factory down there. Yeah.
I went to Vaughn Secondary School for the aforementioned summer school when I failed math, which is where Andrew Wiggins went. So shout out to Andrew.
Oh, there you go.
LT, this one's for you. Last week, the DOJ released over 3 million pages to the Epstein files. So,
yeah.
My question to you, higher or lower than 499.5, the amount of documents you've gone through since the latest Epstein release?
It's a great question. Man.
I didn't know where to set the over-under. I hope it's a good one.
That might be a little high.
All right.
But there was an Onion article that had a great joke, and it was like, the release of the Epstein files has rekindled America's love affair with reading. And I was like, that's so true. I'll set the under, but it's probably been a lot.
Yeah, some of them are like couple words, they're not that long. You could fly through 499 real quick. 500.
I mean, I'll tell you who you could take the over on, which is Brian Campbell.
Yeah, we know that.
Who won't stop texting me the dumbest conspiracy theories he can come up with. But
Aaron, over under on this?
That's an under.
Yeah.
I'll take the I'll take the under, Alex.
All right. Aaron, this one's for you. Khamzat Chimaev, one of the most dominant middleweights currently, but his inactivity the last 5 years has kind of put a hindrance on his career. So my question to you is, higher or lower than 2.5, the amount of title defenses Chimaev will have during his current title run?
God,
So
I mean,
if he gets stripped, it doesn't count.
If he fights more than 2.5 times, he'll have that amount of title defenses. Oh, I'm going to take the over.
All right.
I think that's the move. I agree with that. I don't think they're going to let him go to 205 right away.
See, I'm not worried about 205. I'm worried about this man even making the walk. Yeah, I'm
his
taking
health and
the
his
under.
status, his government status.
My bold prediction beginning of the year was that he doesn't fight till the October Abu Dhabi card, and let's just say he pulls out of that with an injury or something. Now we're going a full year without it. I don't know.
I mean, he's fought on American soil already, so
I know. I'm not saying he can't. I just kind of
that now.
Yeah, I don't know. LT, you taking over or under?
I'll take the over too. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. LT, you do go through vaping phases, but you've come a long way from being the douche flute guzzler we all remember. So my question to you, higher or lower than 2.5, the amount of vapes you've gone through in the last 6 months?
We're not counting, the Mary Jane kind, right?
No. Just
like the standard one?
Yeah.
Zero.
Zero, really?
Zero.
Didn't you have one pretty recently, I thought?
I tried to buy one, and I pulled on it, and it just tasted so gross, I threw it away.
Oh, okay.
So you said gone through. No, I didn't. I mean, that one was 98% full or whatever.
Did you go to a hypnotist or something? How did you just suddenly start finding that disgusting?
It wasn't that I found them all disgusting. It's that I just had to make a choice about your health. Like, if you're going to do other kinds of pollutants, you should dial back on some of them. And I was like, I just can't do this. So I stopped. I also, I don't know. I guess everyone's different, but if I use vapes for a while, it actually becomes hard, literally hard to breathe. And I'm too old to be playing games like that. So no.
Yeah. There's some weird shit in them that I feel like we haven't figured out yet.
You're just barbecuing your lungs with stuff like that.
I just feel like they're, when you look back at cigarette commercials in the 50s and you're like, what? They're like, eat cigarettes with your dinner, and shit like that. Dude, I feel like that's what vapes are now. We're going to look back and be like, dude, we were all inhaling that shit.
I was in college, and this stuff, New York City was the first place under Mayor Bloomberg to start changing where you couldn't smoke in bars. And that was a big deal in circa 2002 or 2003, I think. But up until that time, if you went out to a place, you would come home reeking of
Yeah.
cigarette smoke, your clothes, your hair, everything. And people don't realize now how much that's changed. Like that just doesn't exist
Dude,
anymore.
I used to go to concerts and I would smell like an ashtray. I remember I just take off all my clothes, throw it into the laundry machine as soon as I got home because
it was so gross. And now, I mean,
gross.
you still have to shower and do all that other stuff, but like it's just not nearly as bad anymore.
Every time I walk into my living room, I reek like weed. It's crazy. But anyways, Aaron, next one for you. With the exception of COVID, which was a blur, it seems like you're at every big event. Maybe you were even at the COVID events too. I'm not really sure. Just saying. Higher or lower than though? 3.5. The amount of UFC numbered events that you have missed since 2020.
Over for sure because I don't go to the international ones. I don't go outside North America. So it's absolutely
all right. So then let's just make it North American. How many North American events have you missed since 2020?
Since 2022. It's probably still an over.
All right.
Yeah,
so you don't go to any of the ones in Australia or
no, I don't go to any of those.
whatever.
But if we're looking at just North American ones, I still think it would be over 3.5 that I missed. I know I missed Yuri versus Alex. I think that was the one at MSG. If that was the MSG one, I missed that one. And I think there were a couple other ones that year that I missed.
Yuri Alex, wasn't that International Fight Week?
Whatever the one with Yuri in New York
two of
City
them.
was.
Oh, maybe
two
one of the.
I think it was the first one. So I think I missed that one.
LT, have you gone to more than 3.5 numbered events since 2022?
No, I've not gone to any.
All right. There you go. You've gone to PFL though, right?
Oh,
Like
I did
once.
go to a PFL event. Yes, in DC.
Was that a
yes.
numbered event?
They're all numbered events.
Finale. It was a finale.
Yeah, it was like PFL 7, but then next year they'll do PFL 7 again, and it'll be
PFL
confusing as
7.5.
shit. You have to-
And you're like,
exactly.
okay, what is
You have to
this?
go by the year. Yeah. Anyways, guys, now we're gonna play everyone's favorite game. It is Rank That Card.
Rank that card! It sucks.
All right, first up, LP.
Jay Sherman at the end there.
The Polish fighter with the best chance of winning on Saturday: Claudia Segulia, Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, or Jakub Wiklax?
I've not seen the odds enough to know exactly, but I'm going to go Oleksiejczuk, Wiklax, and then Segula.
I feel like that's a fair order. AB, you doing any different?
Same as Luke.
Yeah, I'm looking quickly now.
I mean, Wiklash is the only underdog of the bunch, and Segula's favored, but I still think Wiklash has a better chance of winning than Segula.
Yeah, Segula minus 155, Wiklax plus 102. Money's come in on him because it was a little wider earlier.
Yeah, dude missed weight his opponent.
AB, fighters undefeated in the UFC with the biggest chance of losing on Saturday: Farid Basharat, Vinicius Oliveira, or Daniil Donchenko?
Okay, I'll go Vinicius, Farid, and then Donchenko last.
Okay. LT? I feel like people are sleeping on Alex Morono. I know he's like, chinny.
Yeah,
and he's been through
I'm gonna
wars,
say Donchenko, Vinicius, then Basharat.
Okay. I'd probably go Vinicius, Donchenko, Basharat. All right. LT. Most entertaining fighter on the card: Kyoji Horiguchi, Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, or Vinicius Oliveira?
Yeah. Oliveira, Horiguchi, Oleksiejczuk.
Aaron?
Yeah, ditto. Same
All
as
right.
Luke.
Jeez, guys, have some variety. No, I'm just kidding. Aaron, fighter whose stock will drop the most with a loss on Saturday: Mario Bautista, Jalton Almeida, or Kyoji Horiguchi?
I'll go Almeida, Bautista, Horiguchi.
Ooh, I'll differentiate. I think it would be terrible for Horiguchi. I think it'd be terrible for Bautista, but not quite as bad. And I think Almeida is already a lost cause. So I don't think I'm not saying a loss wouldn't hurt, but I just feel like he's already kind of damaged goods.
See, I feel like Bautista's the most to lose because he's already kind of not everyone's favorite fighter. He's coming off a loss to Umar. You now lose to Vinicius, who maybe...
Yeah, but Horiguchi's right up against the title shot. You lose that, that's much worse.
Yeah,
but
but
Almeida's fighting a guy who's ranked lower than Tai Tuivasa, so eat that.
Yeah, but Almeida, but it's heavyweight, so he's one win away from a title shot.
Yeah, that's true.
Or a Cortez Acosta fight. And Kyoji, I feel like because there's so many, like, I don't want to say contenders because some of them are coming off losses, but there's still like Moreno, Royval, Kopp, Tyra. Like, there's other matchups you could still kind of put together with him and get him right back in the picture. So I don't know if he has that much to lose. But next up, LT. Most intimidating animal nickname. These are all fighters on the card. The snow leopard, loke dog, or the great white. Which one would you be most intimidated by?
I like snow leopard the most. I'd go great white next. I'd go loke dog last. Even though I think in person, loke dog might be actually more intimidating than some of these guys. But just pure nickname, loke dog does nothing for me.
Real quick before, just to interrupt this game, Wang Tong just missed weight, 127.5, and add her to Muin Gafarov, who also came in at 141 earlier. So that's 2 fighters who missed weight, and we're waiting on like a good amount. There's still like 4 or 5 fighters who have not weighed in.
There's
Yet,
4 minutes left to weigh in.
Yeah, so be prepared for some weight misses here. Aaron, which animal nickname is most intimidating?
All right, so I'm going to take a different methodology than Luke here. So like if I was a fighter and somebody gave me contracts with just the nicknames in front of me, I would say Loke Dog would be the most intimidating because you don't want to fight a guy named Loke Dog.
Yeah.
Then I'd go with the Great White and then the Snow Leopard.
I think I agree 100%. And the way you worded it is perfect. You get the fight contract and all you read is Loke Dog. I'd be like, fuck, dude, this guy's been through some shit.
I'll go through the Great White instead.
Probably been incarcerated. Like, I'm not.
It's not intimidating at all.
Snow leopard to me is like, what am I going to play in the snow with him? We're gonna
A
have
snow
like a
leopard just
snowball fight?
mauled a person's face in China. They have it on video. You seen that shit?
I mean, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Go see that shit and then come back.
A weird nickname to nickname yourself after. Like you wouldn't
Exactly.
want to
That's why it's the best. Some exotic, vicious animal.
Maybe.
I guess mauling of. Yeah. All right. I guess that makes sense. Aaron, former Patchy Mix opponent most likely to win a UFC title: Jakub Wiklax, Kyoji Horiguchi, or Mario Bautista?
Oh God. Most likely to win a UFC title. Can I take the none of the above? If I have to rank it, I'm gonna go Bautista, Wiklash, Horiguchi. No disrespect. I think Horiguchi today has the best chance, but like I think ultimately he's not gonna get there. He's 35. I think Bautista still has a little time to grow, and we still haven't seen what Wiklash brings to the table overall and was a champion in KSW. So I don't know.
Real quick question. Was the Javid Basharat Yanni Vasquez fight a catch weight or was it at
35?
All right, because what's his face?
Oh, sorry. No, I think it's 135 pounds. I don't know if it's a catch weight.
I was gonna say because Basharat weighed in at the bantamweight limit, but his opponent Vasquez just came in at 141. Wasn't sure if he missed weight or if it was they settled on 140 or something. And now we just have Eduardo Mora coming at 127. So her and both opponents missed weight there, Wang Tong and Eduardo Mora.
UFC website has Basharat Vasquez as a bantamweight fight.
All right, so that is 4 fighters total who have missed weight so far, and I believe we're still waiting on 1 or 2. But yeah, this card is a shit show. LT, most Patchy Mix opponent most likely to win a title?
I'm going to go a little different. I'm going to go Horiguchi, Bautista, and then Wiklash last.
All right. That's fair. LT, most likely to avoid a 3rd straight loss: Javid Basharat, Nico Price, or Ketlin Souza?
I feel like Javid Basharat is the most talented of the group. And then Ketlin Souza is a little bit less error prone than Nico Price, who just donks it up. So I'll go Basharat, Souza, Price.
I might be delusional, but between Alex Morono and Nico Price, who I think are like 2 of the bigger dogs on the card, like I feel like I kind of like them this week, man. I don't know. Veretnikov, I haven't been too high on. AB, you got any different?
Same as Luke.
Same as Luke? All right. Well, AB, how about this? Most likely to win by finish: Oleg Zaychuk, Daniil Donchenko, or Jalton Almeida?
All right. Daniil Donchenko, number 1. Jalton Almeida, number 2. Oleg Zaychuk, number 3. I think all 3 are going to get finishes, though.
Okay. LT?
I might go slightly different only because Oleg Zaychuk with Fighting Nerds has been a little bit better about it. So I'll go Donchenko, Oleg Zaychuk, and then Almeida.
I'm going the order that it's in. I think Oleg Zaychuk gets Barrio out of there real quick. Donchenko, I just mentioned, I kind of like Morono to last a little longer there. And Almeida, I did pick him, but I'm worried he's going to gas out, and we'll see what happens. LT, who will have more UFC fights after Saturday? Marc-Andre Barrio, Alex Morono, or Nico Price? All of them on not necessarily long losing streaks. I think they've all lost 2 in a row, but they're on like lost 4 of their last 5 of their last 6.
That's a tough one. I might go in this order, or I might just flip the first 2 and go Morono, Barrio, and then Price last. I'd keep Price last and then maybe just move the first two in one direction or the other.
AB?
I'll go Barrio, Nico Price, Alex Morono.
See, I feel like Barrio is most likely to lose on Saturday, and then I think they cut him after that because that's
Barrio just doesn't say no to fights and is always available. And there's
and
a
he's
value in that,
Canadian, and
he's
they
younger,
do need
he's Canadian.
Yeah, Morono, I think, is one knockout away from being gone. Nico again needs to win on Saturday, otherwise
Nico's got 7 kids, dude. He's got to fight.
I
Get
know.
that guy fights.
Yeah, but he could also go to like BKFC or something.
That's true.
You know. AB, last one. Most likely to challenge for a UFC belt one day: Amir Albazi, Wang Tong, or Vinicius Oliveira.
I'll go Vinicius Oliveira, Wang Tong, Amir Albazi.
LT?
Definitely Vinicius won. Yeah, I agree with him. Probably Wang Tong second, and then Albazi. I mean, I think Albazi's talented, but he's got to prove something here on Saturday for him to move up in these power rankings.
But isn't that all it could possibly take? Is a win on a win?
But
on
you're asking me
Saturday
before the fight, not after. You know,
right? But I don't know. I'm taking that into consideration. What if they all win on Saturday? How closer are they? I kind of feel like Amir is closer than we.
Oh, in that sense, yes, he's higher. He's higher ranked, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
Wang Tong, I feel like could fight for a title. I just don't know if she's too old to get there. You know what I mean? Like, I think she's like mid-30s. So, but guys, that was it. That was Rank That Card.
Yay.
Hopefully you enjoyed it. It was fun.
All right. Before you go, Long Island, plug again what you're doing this weekend so the folks can know.
So we got a new episode of Prop Quiz dropping in 28 minutes. Danny Segura taking on Chuck Mindenhall. Really fun one. Comes down to the last question. Make sure you tune in. Doing a full card watch along tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, UFC Vegas, 113, baby. You already know. Main card minute. Tune in. Catch you guys then.
There you have it. Aaron, for your coverage plan for the weekend, what do you got going on?
Not a whole lot. Basically, just going to be tracking the event as it happens. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing anything on Sportsnet on Saturday because the Olympics are starting. So I think things are starting to rev up in that sense. Yeah. So either way, follow me on social media. You can go to www.aaron.report for all my links, and we'll see you on Saturday.
And then, of course, you can see all of the social handles below for IG, for X, for TikTok, for YouTube, and everything else. One more reminder here. Go to the morningkombat.shop, morningkombat.shop. Not only do we have new evergreen items, which you can check out right now, but on top of that, the Army of Donkness design is now up and ready to go, both in the form of posters as well as merch. And don't forget, this will only be available until February 28th at 11:59 p.m. East Coast times, or while supplies last. Thank you guys so much for watching today. We really appreciate it. One more time, you can email the show, Dead Wrongs, fan subs, or just to reach the show more broadly, morningkombat@gmail.com. Aaron, big thanks for stopping by. We always appreciate it when you're here. And for Aaron, for Long Island Luke, for the whole team here at MK, thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Until next time, may all of your gains be loyal.